সুবল স্যার আপনি শুনতে পাচ্ছেন?
Ma'am, now
Yes.
I going to add all participant, okay?
Okay.
After 30 minutes.
30 seconds or
Okay, 30 seconds.
Okay.
Ma'am, please start yourself. Now streaming on
Namaskar.
YouTube.
Namaskar. Good morning to you all. I am Renuka Gupta from the Department of Geography, Nistarini College, Purulia. On behalf of my department, I am highly honored to welcome today's eminent speakers, Professor R.B. Bhagat from International Institute for Population Sciences, Mumbai, and Professor Bhashwati Das from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. To this webinar, it's my great pleasure to welcome our respected Principal Madam, Dr. Indrani Dev, our Honorable President, Sir, of the governing body, and the Controller of Examinations, Shidho Kanhu Birsa University, Purulia, Dr. Shubal Chandra De, and our respected coordinator, Internal Quality Assurance Cell, Professor Nandadulal Shonigrahi, from our departmental desk. I would like to extend my warm welcome to the distinguished guests, participants, and my dear students. The theme of this webinar, demographic aspects and COVID-19 pandemic, is very relevant in current global situation. This coronavirus is not the first global pandemic, or it may not be the last. Now the question arises, how does a disease turn to pandemic? We already know that a pandemic is an epidemic occurring over a wide area, crossing international boundaries, and usually affecting a large number of people. This year, the 2020 marks the 100th anniversary of the deadliest pandemic event in human history, that in 1918, 1919, and that pandemic influenza caused extraordinary mortality, estimated about 50 to 100 million deaths. The plague of the 14th century is known as the Black Death across the Silk Route, which route had been used as the international trade route, is an example of migration where the spread of contagious disease is impacted by human society and economics. Another fact, urbanization from the demographic point of view has now become a universal phenomenon. Today, more than 55% of the world population is living in urban areas, which is going to climb up to about 68% by 2050. Urbanization results from myriad forms of migration of people from rural to urban as well as urban to urban. Therefore, clearly, the virus spreads quickly across the world. However, there are so many questions. Is there a way in which demography could help prevent outbreaks in the future? What role the pandemic will play over the current economy, and what will be its effect over the population dynamics in the future? Today, we have two learned, experienced, and expertise resource persons with us. Respected sir and madam, I am confident that your valuable speech will enlighten us and will overcome our all doubts. I hope all participants present here will have an engaging and enriching session ahead. This time, there will be a question and answering session at the end of each presentation. If you have any questions, please enter the chat box. Thank you all. Now, I would like to invite our Principal Madam to deliver her welcome address. Please, Madam, thank you again.
Thank you, Renuka Madam. Good morning to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Today, we have with us many eminent personalities Let me first welcome Dr. Subal Chandra De, the governing body president of Nistarini College, and also the controller of examinations, Shidukano Vishwa University, Purulia. He is a part of Nistarini College, but for today's seminar, I am welcoming him to our program. Apart from Dr. Subal Chandra De, we have two eminent resource persons. I welcome them both. Professor Bhashwati Dash from the faculty of the Center for the Study of Regional Development, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. I welcome her, and also welcome to Professor R.B. Bhagat, who is the head Department of Migration and Urban Studies, International Institute for Population Sciences, Mumbai. I would have been very happy to welcome you physically to the college. But because of this pandemic situation on which the seminar is titled, because of this situation, it is very difficult for us to travel and to come to a place like Purulia. If you had come to Purulia, if you had come to Nistarini College, you would have liked it very much, I'm sure. You would have liked our students, you would have liked the interaction, and you would have liked the ambience of the college. But because of the situation, as I said, we cannot invite you personally to this college. However, welcome to you, welcome to this webinar today. The title of this webinar today is Demographic Aspects and COVID-19 Pandemic. In this situation, as Renuka Madam has said, this is not the first pandemic, but we are now going through a pandemic which is global, which has affected the lives of all the people of the planet. Every person in this planet, every person in India has been affected economically and from the health standpoint during this pandemic. For over a year, we have been seeing a sea change in the lives of the people. The demographic aspect has become a very important aspect in these times. This one virus has brought in what we are calling a new normal situation. In the new normal situation, we have to act in a different way. We have to work in a different way. We have to speak with people in a different way. We cannot interact personally. Personal interaction has disappeared. Not only that, this age has seen one of the largest migrations of modern times. Actually, the largest migration in India since 1947. This is something which we are going through now. This is something which we have to tackle in these times. So, in such a situation where the economy has been affected, where the demography has been affected, where human relationships have been affected, where human health awareness has been affected, in such a situation, we have to think differently, we have to act differently. And the best persons to enlighten us on these counts are our eminent resource persons, Professor Bhashwati Dash and Professor R.B. Bhagat. We are waiting to listen to them today. And we hope this seminar will enlighten all the participants who have collected today to listen to to them and to hear what they have to say. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Dr. Subal Chandrade. Thank you, our resource persons. Thank you to the Geography Department for organizing this webinar. And thanks also to the IQAC, the Internal Quality Assurance Cell in this college, who has collaborated with them in this webinar. Thanks to you all, and welcome again. Welcome again to Nistarini College, all of you. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, now I request Dr. Subal Chandra De to inaugurate the program. Dr. De is the president of the governing body of our college, Nistarini Women's College. He is also the controller of examination, Sidhu Kanu Biswa University. Sir has been actively supporting us in all our academic endeavor. We are thankful to Sir for consenting to join us today, despite his extremely busy schedule. We are thankful to you, sir. Please, and we welcome you to our webinar platform. Sir, please join us.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you, madam. Respected Principal, Dr. Indrani Dev, eminent and distinguished speakers of the webinar, Professor R.B. Bhagat, International Institute of Population Science from Mumbai, Dr. Bhaswati Das, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, all the teachers of different colleges, including Nistarini College, and research scholars, and my dear students. First of all, I must convey my heartfelt thanks to the organizers and the Department of Geography as well for organizing this webinar, which is very, very essential and relevant just before the Puja festival of the Bengali people as well as the Indian, all Indian, where we are going to celebrate forgetting the social distance and wearing the mask, which is the vaccine of today. The present unprecedented pandemic situation has created manifold severe consequences to the human civilization, as everybody told. The inevitable lockdown announced at the beginning paralyzed the educational sector also. But this lockdown has come as a blessing in disguise for the university and colleges in India. Teachers' hesitation to use online portal have now disappeared to a great extent. Our experience is that most of the students have digital proficiency and they are accepting the online learning with great excitement. Digital learning has greatly facilitated this aspect of knowledge acquisition. Today, webinar, e-learning, virtual meeting are the reality and have been fully integrated into the higher education system. This new normal situation revealed conclusively that our students are tech savvy and they are very much comfortable with this system. I think this is the most important positive outcome of this negative situation. Now let us come to the topic, today's topic. Currently, the world stands in a completely new epidemiological situation. Of course, there were more epidemics, as our principal madam said, or pandemics in the past, but this could be considered as the first one, which is tracked and researched almost instantaneously via the internet. The COVID-19 pandemic affects not only the individual lives, societies, cities, economies, and political structure of the world, but also the research of many fields of study. The novel coronavirus infected pneumonia, which is also formally known as COVID-19 disease, is being studied throughout the world. Logically, the first research was oriented above all on biological, medical, epidemiological, or virological factors, and particular medical case studies. The goal of such studies was mostly the estimation of important epidemiologic features. Demographic approaches were usually limited only to the calculation of basic indicators or characteristics, average or median age, sex ratio, age structure, etc. Studies revealed that age is the most important demographic factor which plays a significant role in the evolution of the illness, its causes, and its consequences. From the registered database, we can easily conclude that the current pandemic with a strongly affected and considered and rather conditioned by the demographic characteristics of the population. However, I believe that through this webinar, we will try to explore the followings, which are very important in today's scenario. These are, first one, what factors explain regional and country differentials in population vulnerability to this deadly disease? What are the contribution of demographic factors such as age structure, spatial distribution, social stratification, and migration? And importantly, what are the lessons learned in terms of data needs and methods of analysis, as well as policy priorities for the future? Lastly, once again, I convey my sincere thanks to all of you, and let us wish the grand success of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable spiel in this occasion. Now it is the time for technical session. Now I would like to introduce our resource person, Professor Arvi Bhagat. Head Department.
Respected participants, we are just having a problem with the connection. Please do bear with us for a few seconds before we can set it right. Please do bear with us for a few seconds only before it can be set right. There is an internet connection problem here. Please do bear with us.
Thank you, madam. So now it is the time for technical, and now I would like to introduce our resource professor Arvi Bhagat. He is professor and head Department of Migration and Anomaly Studies. And areas of specializations are urbanization and right to the city, migration and development, demography of religion and caste, politics of demographic data, marriage and fertility, population and environment. He has done numerous research works and supervised many MPhil and PhD scholars. Now it is a precious occasion to enhance ourselves with his lecture. So I request you, sir, to initiate the valuable lecture session. Please, sir. Sir, please initiate the lecture session.
Hello. Bhagat sir, now the platform is yours.
Okay, thank you. There are problems of internet here also.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me, and good morning to all of you. So, I am thankful to GB Nistarini College and President of the college, Dr. S.C. Dev, Principal Dr. Indrani Dev, Professor Renuka Gupta, who is Head and Organizing Secretary, Professor N. Sanigrahi, who is Coordinator of IQAC, Professor Bhaswati Das, my colleague and co-panelist, and I do not see whether Dr. Abhijit Mistry is here. So Dr. Abhijit Mistry, I have some opportunity to work with him.
Yes, sir, I am here.
Okay. So, and faculty members and students and their participants. So first of all, let me tell you, I am somehow connected with Purulia, in the sense that two of my PhD students now belong to Purulia. Okay. So one is Devrupa Gupta, who is working on social stratification and segregation in Calcutta city. And other is Vidita Dhar. She is also from Purulia, and she is working on in situ urbanization and role of census town in economic development. So I'm somehow connected, and Abhijit Mistry also. We have worked together. So it's a great opportunity, and I thank you all for organizing this. So as you know, that pandemic has affected us, and it affected almost all aspects of our life, whether it is economic, social, political, almost all aspects, and it is global in nature. But everybody, we have to contribute, and we can contribute, and we can understand the pandemic. And as a conscious citizen researcher, we have a lot of opportunity and a lot of challenges also. So the pandemic has brought us before a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunity. We all are, most of us here, and as it is organized by geography department, we all work in certain boundaries of the disciplines. So we have discipline of geography, we have demography, we have economics. Everybody, I think, has a role to play. And we can look at from our own perspective and to enlighten the problems and the possible solutions also. In that light, I would like to look at the whole problem and present before you, although the content will be of demographic, but the approach will be from geographical perspective. So how we look at the issues from geographical perspective or from the lens of geography. Just to widen it little bit, we also call space and place approach to understand the whole phenomena. Now, space and place is better framework where we have to integrate with other social scientists also. Sometimes we work in isolation. So what geographers are doing, economists are not knowing. What economists are doing, geographers or sociologists, they are not knowing. So there is a huge cleavage, or there are huge separations among the disciplines. It is happening because we don't have a certain way of looking where then there can be convergence. And from that point of view, geography or space and place approach provides a framework of looking the whole problem. Similarly, the history also. As president and principal of the college pointed out, this is not the first pandemic. We have earlier also pandemic. In 1918-19, also we have Spanish influenza. It was global, and there were deaths were huge. There were 12 million deaths in India. And most of the deaths were in northern India, states like Bihar, badly affected. So I think this is not, and we can look at from historical point. So spatially, geographically, historically, economically. So in fact, disciplines are not separate. Disciplines are integrated. And most of us are working in interdisciplinary perspective. So I may be talking about demography, but also talking about a geographical perspective. One may be talking about demography, also talking about historical perspective. So interdisciplinarity is very much there in most of our work, but it is also important to see and go beyond interdisciplinarity to becoming multidisciplinary. One cannot become expert in other discipline, but at least what are things are happening in other discipline, that is also important to take into account. And that is one thing I find methodologically lacking in our academic system or in the system of knowledge production. Now, this type of knowledge production is not allowing us to develop our consciousness. So I think somewhere we have to think that how we can develop our consciousness in an integrated manner so that we can understand our problems better. So let us look at this pandemic. This pandemic, COVID-19, the name has been given, started from the city of Wuhan in Hubei province of China. Somewhere in December 2019. And by January and February, until WHO declared it as a pandemic on March 11, it has already spread many countries of the world. How this has happened? This has happened because of the globalized nature of our economy and globalized nature of our society. Global society, global economy. And what was central to this spread of disease was migration and mobility. Migration and mobility was central in the spread that immediately spread so many countries in 2 months' time, 2.5 months' time. And this is through migration. And mobility is when people move, not changing the residence permanently, commuting, travel, all these are part of the mobility. So migration and mobility was central. Now, why this migration and mobility? We have to see. Migration and mobility is very much rooted in the nature of globalization and globalization with urbanization. We cannot understand globalization without urbanization. And both globalization and urbanization is closely related with economic growth and development. We are talking about economic growth and economic development. What happens in economic growth? We are producing more goods and services. And when more goods and services are produced, it is not natural that all goods and services will be consumed in the place where it is produced. And therefore, movement of goods and services is a natural outcome of the process of economic development and economic growth. So when we have more and more goods and services are produced, more and more trade takes place. So it is not only goods and services. Capital also likely to move or not likely to move. The mobility of capital also becomes important. And then migration becomes important. Information becomes important. So these are the dimensions of mobility. Mobility is not confined to only the migration, human part, but mobility is also mobility of goods and services, capital, and information. Everything is now embedded in the process of globalization. And this globalization works how? Who regulates this globalization? It is regulated, the flow of goods and services and other flows are regulated through cities and what we call global cities. So global cities like London or New York and Tokyo or Paris. And then there are regional system of cities. There are state level cities. So cities, unless we see that how cities are connected, how cities are regulating the flow, we cannot understand the process of globalization and also process of economic development. Sometimes while we teach economic growth and economic development, we don't emphasize these aspects of mobility, migration, movement, and how this is related with the process of urbanization and globalization. So pandemic was declared on 11th, And then Government of India declared lockdown on 24th March. So from 25th March, there was a lockdown. What is lockdown? Lockdown is something that you stop mobility and migration. You stop movement. So the problem started with mobility, migration, and movement, which led to the spread. Solution by that, what is solution? Stop mobility, stop migration, stop movement. Then what is happening in a running train? All of it, there is a break. What is going to? There is a crash. So basically what we see, the economic crisis now hanging over us, and it will hang for many months and years to come, is basically we have reshaped our space and place suddenly in a panicked way, that when it has been declared a pandemic by WHO, the countries started taking the measures. All of a sudden, break. And this has led to the crisis. Why this type of lockdown? Lockdown for a country like India, it was natural reaction that we did not know much about the disease, and we are a huge country, 135 crore people, and we have very high density of population, and our healthcare system was very poor. And therefore it was thought that if something happens, our healthcare system will not be able to sustain. And therefore it is better to take a measure, which is something very drastic. And it was done. It was not done by India alone, but it was done by many countries. Some countries did gradually, and some countries did all of a sudden. But India has a very different problem. We are a large country. So if you see how this pandemic started in India, it was COVID-19 disease was first reported in Kerala. Then it was reported in various cities, and particularly the mega cities. And in April, if you see the data of April, sometime, you find that the 50% of the COVID-19 cases were 5 to 6 cities of India. Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, Ahmedabad, Bengal, these were Chennai. These were the cities where in month of April, you find the 50% or more than 50% cases were there. So now lockdown has been implemented in entire country. Now it is not important to go back and see how it could have been done. But of course, geographical approach matters. And if it would have been lockdown, would have been only to the cities or big cities, I think then also could have minimized the impact that we have seen it. So perhaps somewhere we lacked knowledge, we lacked understanding of the entire processes, the entire regional processes, entire spatial processes, and how these are shaped by space, place, factors like urbanization in the spread of disease or in the control of disease. So I think knowledge gaps were very important. And now when we look back and see all these things, many things are getting clear, but we cannot reverse the process. But certainly we can apply this type of consciousness, this type of geographical consciousness, or this type of consciousness of space and place in our future strategy of development or planning. So this has lockdown affected the cities. And if you see our nature of economic production, again, we talk about economic growth, we talk about employment, job creations. But what happens when we see that economic growth was very good in the country, but where the economic growth was taking place? What was the sectoral composition of economic growth? What was the contribution of urban areas in economic growth? And that understanding is important to understand the impact. So if you see agriculture, agriculture has become a marginal activity. It is just contributing 14% of the GDP, but about 50% of people are dependent on agriculture. So economic growth is coming from the cities that need to be realized. And these, among the cities, we have the 53 million plus cities according to 2011 census. And we have 8 mega cities. They are actually contributing to the economic growth, or what we call it GDP. Now, how? Question of GDP can be debated and discussed, and what is GDP, what is wealth, what is economic growth. Those are, I think, also need to be questioned. But at the moment, whatever has been accepted as a concept of GDP and economic growth, we see that about 65% and 70% of the GDP coming from urban areas and coming from the big city. And so what is happening in the big city? Who are contributing to the economic growth? Of course, workers, urban workers, and within urban workers, we have about 40 to 45% migrant workers. So migrant worker is a big chunk within the city, and these migrant workers who are contributing to economic growth, to the GDP, to the wealth of the nation, now we have seen their precarious situation, and we were oblivious of that these migrant workers exist. In fact, when they started walking down on the road, we have been awakened. We recognize that yes, there are migrant workers and their existence is there in the city. So earlier it was not there. Why I am saying this? We have a host of urban policies and programs. And if you see carefully those policies and programs, you will not find the word migrant written in that. You will only find migrant written somewhere like Manrega, MG Narega, where it is said that yes, Manrega is going to reduce rural to urban migration. So in the urban policies and program, you will not find migrants. But then why? It is thought that migrants are poor, migrants are working in informal sector. So informality and poverty will take care of. So that is the approach of the economics. Economists' approach that yes, migrants are poor. Migrants are working in informal sector. So if you address the question of poverty and you address the question of informality, the question of migration doesn't arise. I think that is not a correct view. It is not, urban poverty is not a linear something of transfer of rural poverty. Urban areas have poverty, has poverty which is of multidimensional nature. One can have sufficient income, one can get good food in urban area, but they might be living on the in slums or in squatter settlements. So this type of precarity is not recognized, and then they are not able to access also various social security programs, because for social security programs you need to have identity proof and residential proof, and identity and residential proof is not something easily accessible. So these were various deprivations which are rooted in urban area, which are space place centric. So we didn't recognize space and place as a factor. We see in a very homogeneous way that yes, address poverty, things are going to be over. So that I think did not work in our policies and program, and we have been neglecting the aspects of migrant worker who have been contributing to the growth of the cities and wealth of the cities. These migrant workers were not only deprived in economic and social sense, they were deprived in political sense also, because they are mostly part of the informal workforce, and many of them are seasonal temporary migrants. It is not they are permanent. Then again, this again needs to be re-emphasized here. The migration as it is understood in academic literature and particularly in economics is understood as a transfer of permanent labor. It is not transfer of permanent labor from rural to urban areas or from agriculture sector to non-agriculture sector. But many migrants are keeping their foothold in rural areas as well as working in the urban area. It is becoming a livelihood strategy. It is a way of diversifying the income. So this type of circulatory seasonal migration, that is not part of our academic theorization, and this has been neglected. So we need to understand the forms of migration also, their nature of vulnerability, and their nature of political, economic, social, and political exclusion. They are not part of the organized workforce. For example, we have earlier the working class. We have trade unions. We don't have trade unions. They are seasonal temporary migrants. They are precariats. They are not proletariats. So in contrast to proletariats, we have precariats. And these precariats not only lose the economic and social benefits, but also political. So politically, where they are going to vote? That was a question. And that's why one of the fundamental questions that pandemic raised was a question of citizenship. They are citizens of the country, but where did they belong? Did they belong to a state of destination, or did they belong to a state of origin, or it is the responsibility of central government? So citizenship, question of citizenship is not for the international migrants only, but for internal migrants only. And internal migrants, although they are formal citizens, but their substantive citizenship in terms of access to their economic and social rights, that was not fulfilled. And therefore, there were a lot of things, discussions and debates, who is going to pay the transport bill, a railways bill, and the matter ultimately went to the Supreme Court. So what I am trying to tell is that this group of people are not the vote bank. Their names may be figure in the place of origin, but they are not able to vote at the time when voting takes place. Because for voting, they need to go back. And it is not possible for everybody to go back and vote in their respective constituents. And therefore, the portability questions has arisen. Portability of not only social security programs, but also portability of voting rights. So these things are emerging, and this pandemic has thrown these things before the policymaker, before the nation. And now we see some response coming. And these responses are welcome, but we need to see how these response by the central government or by the state government, some of the state government, are going to be translated in terms of reality. So one of the things is that one nation, one ration card. One nation, one ration card is a very welcome thing, but how it will be implemented, how it will be subsidized, who is going to pay between two states. I do not see any sort of till now, any sort of architecture or any sort of policy formulation, but maybe in future, something may come out. Then one more announcement that is very important and welcome sign. That is the rental housing. Rental housing was not the concept earlier. So now we have rental housing for the migrant workers. In fact, this housing is a big important question for urban inclusion. And housing is a gateway, in fact, to urban citizenship. Once one has a housing, one can have permanent proof, residential proof, and along with identity proof, it becomes a gateway. So this rental housing is also important, very important announcement. But we have to think in larger perspective. migrants are not only, we are talking about migrant workers only. हेलो, हाँ मैं बात करता हूँ सर आपसे, अभी जरा मीटिंग करता हूँ, सॉरी। So we are only thinking of migrant workers, but what about students? Students are also migrant, and if you look at their condition in big cities, they are living like a paying guest somewhere in crowded accommodation. How they are going to study? So hostel is, now we think that hostel is the responsibility of the university and colleges. Why? Why hostel should be the responsibility of only university and colleges? Why not city as such? So I think we have to expand this type of requirement and vision in future, that there should be some rental accommodation or rental hostel for students as well. For working women also, something is there, but it needs. So these are, I think, part of the urban inclusion and policy making in future that COVID pandemic has brought to the fore, and hopefully some good signs are emerging, and hopefully this will be carried forward, this will be consolidated. So these are the opportunities and these are the challenges, but we have enormous negative attitude towards migration and also urbanization. We have been always thinking about village, romanticizing village, and cities are condemned. Migrants are attributed to all sorts of problems in the city. So this type of negative attitude, and why this type of negative attitude? Because somewhere they are not included. For example, we are also myself and some of you are also migrant, but our is not a question of urban inclusion. We are already included, but these people who are not included, I think they are contributing, but at the same time, they are not getting respectable place in our society. So we have to shed our negative attitude. Then this should also reflect in our academic practices, in academic theories, in social theories also. And let me tell you, one of leading theories in migration theories, that is Harris-Tadaro model, where the economists are very fond of using this model. Hundreds of articles have been written on Harris-Tadaro model. And because it is an econometric model, it is very beautiful and very applicable. It can be applied mathematically and very appealing. But what is this model is all about? This model is spreading negative attitude towards migration. It says that preventing migration from rural to urban area will be helpful for rural welfare. So we have to see all these things. Why this type of negativity? Because migration is seen as a static phenomenon, not as a historical phenomenon, not as a migration building the city. So when we look at historically, we find that one cannot cite any city, named city, which is not built by migrants. Historically, cities are built by migration and peopled by migrants. And cities have flourished. And migrants not only bring economic growth, but innovations, creativity, diversity. We cannot imagine city without diversity. And diversity is not a bad thing. Diversity and innovation and creativity are linked together. If there is a homogeneity, whether in terms of any social attributes or economic homogeneity, only one type of goods and services will be produced, one type of people will live, there will be no creativity and there will be no innovations. Innovations, creativity, and diversity are very much interlinked. And one can see this type of thing only in city, but it doesn't mean that city doesn't have problems. Cities have lots of problems. Cities are not inclusive, as I have told you. we did not have regionally balanced development. And this has been contributed by the cities. Cities has become inequalizer. It has produced regional disparity. But we have to see the positive side of this. And therefore, the intervention, how to harness the potential of the city. The potential of the city and relationship between migrant and city in promoting inclusive development. Cities becoming as an instrument of rural development. How cities can reduce or bridge the gap, rural-urban divide. That is, I think, and sustainable development, urban sustainable development and sustainable development. So these are, I think, the important agenda, and it is also there in our sustainable development goals. But our policies and programs, our thinking are exclusionary. And sometimes we are oblivious, the city exists, migrant exists, they have their role. And because that we think that space and place is something container, it doesn't matter. It is not an active element, it is a passive element. And that type of approach, I think, theoretical approach, I think is hindering the knowledge production and preventing our consciousness of reality which is integrated, which is historical, which is spatial, and therefore it is creating our problems in our action. So this is how migration, urbanization, and development should be looked from the context of pandemic and its impact. So economic loss, I did not have to count. Enormous economic loss has been done. And there are about 200 million people who lost the job, 20 crore people. And out of this 20 crore, about something like 40 million are migrants. Many more may be there. We do not know exactly. Now, government has come out with a figure on 14th September 2020, and it was reported in the Lok Sabha that 10.5 million people, migrant workers, have returned by buses, which is arranged by the government, and also by Sramik train. Now, these 10.5 million people are have returned in only 6 states of India. West Bengal is one of them, and Odisha, UP, Bihar, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, all these are some of the origin states. So, but there may be many more who are not reported. And this doesn't count the intra-state returnees, those who have returned within the state. And UP, for example, is a big state. Any person returning from Noida to Jaunpur or Gorakhpur within the state, that has not been counted. So impact has been huge. The question of livelihood has been very important, economic loss. And along with that, the impact on access to food, nutrition, and children's health. So a lot of things are there which is connected with this economic loss. And of course, the loss was suffered by the migrant, but it is not only migrant, but non-migrant have also been equally affected. Now, government has announced some programs, and these programs are, one can see how far it is adequate and what is its impact. One of the program was that immediately after the lockdown, there was Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, that is 1.7 lakh crore package, under which 5 kg of rice and wheat and 1 kg of dal per person, per family, and 5 kg per person in the family. That was being given, and it is now also, I think it is continuing. But how long it will continue? That is the question. The second was that the 6 states where the migrants have returned, 10.5 million, within those states, 116 districts have been identified. And these 116 districts have been given 50,000, promised to give 50,000 crore rupees to boost rural infrastructure or Manrega-like programs or certain other programs in order to create jobs. So what has happened of this program particularly, we do not know. And the magnitude of problem is very huge. But the amount of support, I think, is very small. So most of the government strategy has been by giving credit facility and loan facility to revive the economy. And MSME are becoming a main vehicle to revive the economy. Now, how far this is going to be correct or appropriate, we have to see, because again, I like to point out that India is a big country and one size fits all will not be applicable. We must have disaggregated approach, decentralized approach. I think that is very, very important. And this disaggregated and decentralized approach, that is what pandemic is also bringing to the fore. And government is also conscious when there are slogans, this type of slogan, that be vocal on local. So what is this being vocal and local? In fact, how local can become important, how local can become global, not the global should become the local. And then Atmanirbhar Bharat. Again, Atmanirbhar Bharat, if you see, and unless we have a decentralized approach and disaggregated approach, it will not be a successful exercise. And within this decentralized and disaggregated approach, we need to revive planning, culture of planning. In fact, we don't have culture of planning unless we have village level planning, unless we have block level planning, district level planning, the bottom up approach of planning, which we have been teaching or understanding in geography since the 70s, middle of the 60s or 70s. I think that needs to be again reinvented. And the bottom of approach or a type of planning, bottom of planning, decentralized planning, and also that empowerment of the local bodies. Empowerment of the local bodies is mandated in our constitution. That is 73rd and 74th amendment to the constitution, but actually it is not happening. Local bodies are under control of the various governments. A state government doesn't want to give the autonomy to the urban local, to the local bodies, and particularly urban local bodies. So situation is not very good in rural area, but equally worse in urban areas. So you will see during the pandemic, local authorities were not very much visible. Although problems started from the city, but what was the role of the mayor, or what was the role of the councillor, how the corporations were working? So not much visibility was there. Local participation and local authorities coming and helping or designing the policies. I think that this is missing. Local approach was missing. And we have centralized bureaucratic approach of management. This is part of our culture. And that I think pandemic is bringing to the fore, that we need to change this centralized, bureaucratic, top-down, corrupt structure, institutional structure and practices. And we must have bottom-up, decentralized, planned way, and where local participation, local empowerment. And this is how one should be vocal on local. Vocal and local. I think this slogan is very, very good slogan. Sorry. And also Atmanirbhar Bharat. But then we have to think in this term, and I think in future, unless we do this thing. So pandemic, economic growth, urbanization, migration, jobs, all these are related issues. All these are related issues. So we need to see the relationship. Since it is a seminar, the webinar is on demographic aspects, I also must say something about other two demographic aspects, that is fertility and mortality. Migration is of course one, but migration is very important and it is very visible and it has a larger share in entire process. And we have seen its connection with economic processes and economic growth and now some of the political outcomes and policy outcomes. The other two aspects, demographic aspects, is the fertility and mortality. So when we see fertility, I think it may not have much impact on fertility. Maybe that when there will be recovery from the pandemic, there may be some rise in fertility. Now, in every crisis, it happens that births are postponed. Many births are postponed, but there may occur some births which are mistimed. But also marriages are postponed. So marriages are being postponed. So fertility is closely related with marriage. So there may not be, this may not have very huge impact on level of fertility, but there may be some rise after the pandemic. We recover from the pandemic. The second most important thing is the mortality. And in mortality, may not also increase. Mortality means death rate may not increase because of some of the positive sides are also happening. And sometimes people are very happy about that. And I think that is nothing to be happy. It is very short run gain. For example, air pollution has declined. So air pollution is something very important determinant of burden of disease. Then there may be decline in alcohol consumption. Then there is a decline in road accident, because vehicles are not flying. So somewhere this thing can happen where there are mortality can decline, but of course mortality is shifting towards aged person, more people who are suffering from comorbidity. So by and large, till now what we see that India has seen about 110,000 deaths during the last 6 months time, and compared with the 1918-19, the Spanish influenza, where 12 million people have died. So still I think mortality is well within control, but some category of people are likely to be affected more. So basically the impact will be on mobility, on migration. And so out of three demographic components, migration comes out to be very, very important. And migration is closely related with development process. And it also indicates about how our regional development should be there. So regionally balanced development, urban, inclusive urbanization, I think that, and sustainable development, all three things are linked with the process of migration and urbanization. And I think pandemic has brought this space and place aspects to the fore, to the other people of other disciplines to understand these processes, which has been academically sidelined somehow. So I see importance of geography, and there is a revival of geography. There may be renewed interest in geography. And lastly, let me wind up within 5 minutes. Geography is a discipline where I think geographers are very much responsible for not its growth, not bringing and making a dialogue with other disciplines like economics and sociology, because we ourselves are so much within the discipline, so much confusion is there. And then because of that confusion, we are not able to pass a clarity, a methodology to our researchers and to our students and to our fellow colleagues. So let me simplify and tell what is problem within geography and what is solution within geography. So problem in geography that we are physical geographers, we are human geographers. So there is a dichotomy. So each one has taken one area that we are population geographer. So we don't know about geomorphology or climatology, or this is a physical geographer, this is a human geographer, there is agricultural geography, etc. So that is one. Then we have regional and systematic regional geography. We take one district, one block, and then it is a geography. Now, let me tell you very simple way what geography deals with, and this is for the student. And I hope this was told to me that many students will be participating. And so for the sake of the student, I will present a definition or a framework of geography in a very simple way, which you can apply not only within our discipline, but outside also you can look through it. So in geography, there are three things important. One is the location, where the things are located. Okay. So in COVID, we have seen various things, geographical things, social distancing, physical distancing. What is this? This is geographical. Quarantine, space is there, place is there, some quarantine, lockdown, containment zone. In various cities, there were containment zone, area demarcated. Then at the early phase of pandemic, we have red zone, yellow zone, green zone. This has been applied by the government. So all these geographical targeting or geographical thinking was there in the management or in understanding of COVID. So location is important. What is location? Then second is the distance. Now, location and distance, we know very much important, and every student of geography understands what is location, what is distance. So location maybe longitude and latitude based, and if not, we can have certain coordinates on the ground. We can see within our village, or so location can be from the chopal or from the temple or anything. That then second is the distance. Distance we measure through physical distance. So how many kilometers, what is there, how many. Now distance can be economic distance also. Distance can be political distance also. And distance can be social distance also. So it is not only physical distance, but it can be social distance and economic distance. And therefore, when we call about economic distance, it becomes economic stratification. When we call about social distance, it becomes social stratification. So physical, social stratification, and economic stratification are part of the distance. And then third thing is the relationship. So what is relationship? This relationship is the characteristics, and various characteristics we try to link, and we see the relationship. Now, in geography, you know, nothing can exist without relationship, whether in the plant world, in the animal world, or in the human world. Relationship is fundamental, whether you call it ecosystem, or you call it social system, or you call it economic system, relationship. So these three things are there. Whether you are a physical geographer or human geographer, doesn't matter. We have to study location, distance in a multiple form, not distance as a relative category, and the relationship. Now what happens? When relationship changes, distance also changes, location also changes. So therefore, location, distance, and relationship are dynamic category, and it changes with time. So this is what geography is all about, understanding location, distance, and relationship. And when relationship changes, the location, economic location changes, person's economic location in social, economic stratification changes, and that is what mobility is. Economic mobility, social mobility, geographical mobility, all are connected with that. And this is in relative sense. And let me tell one more thing, why relative things are also important. Relative things are created by social processes. Now we know in geography, we have longitude and latitude. Longitude and latitudes are given and we divide and teach students. One of the meridian that goes through the Greenwich, we call it zero. Now somebody is asking a question, why zero is passing through meridian? Why not it is passing zero from 11? The simple answer is, to my mind, is that Britain was a colonial power. It was the most powerful country. And then it was natural that zero should pass through Greenwich. But sun rises in Japan, in Tokyo, one can, if somebody's future is powerful, one can change it. No, what I'm trying to tell you, this location part, location is not only absolute, what we understand in physical geography, but also it is relative. And where physical and social and human geography can merge together when we bring the issue of location, distance, and relationship. And all these are part of the space and place. And I think this is understanding a methodology of geography is very, very important. And it will be good contribution to think geographically and spatially about the pandemics, regions of the pandemics, impact of the pandemics, how this pandemic can impact or had impacted. But we have to study in future a lot of things about that. And every person of every discipline is going to study. But we as a geographers must have geographical way of thinking, spatial thinking, and I think spatial consciousness and geographical imagination. And that geographical imagination will come through a methodology, which is not confused. It provides a lot of clarity and integration with other disciplines like economics and sociology. Only then I think geography can get a respectable place. I think I have spoken enough and I like to end here. So thank you very much. So my talk is over. Thank you.
Thank you for speech in this occasion. And hello, are you hearing me, sir?
So be loud, be loud.
Thank you, sir. Are you hearing me? Thank you, Professor, for valuable speech. And it is the time for interaction session. Sir, some questions have come from the participants. So, hello. Can I address it?
Yeah, sure.
Sir, one question from the participants is that
Yes.
What is the most important, social development or formal education?
Yes, very good question. I think formal education or social development. So education is part of the social development. And in fact, we are defining more in terms of economic development and human development, but we don't emphasize on social development. Actually, our purpose should be the social development. And what happens in human development or economic development, human beings are treated as resources. You find human resources ministry. So what is difference between resources, physical resources, which is coming from forest or mineral or human being? There is no difference, resources. We have converted people into resources, and that is economic development. I think what is needed is social development. And within social development, education is the, I think, most important trigger, most important instrument of social development. Actually, our education is itself is a very bad shape. And now we are trying to make education commercial. That is, what is we are doing? We are making human resources. We are not doing human development, skill development. So skill development is okay, good, but ultimately we have to think of social development, where social relationships, social inclusion, peace, harmony, respect, all these are part of our development processes. So I think social development is most important objective which can be achieved through education, restructuring the goal of education, imparting education, which is helping to create our consciousness, not simply we are converted to human resources. So that is all. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Sir, there is one more question from one of our students. Who are these migrant communities? Why did the lockdown prompt them to flee from the cities? And why did the center and state not anticipate this?
Yes, yes. So why did they not anticipate? That is one question. Center and state, we also did not anticipate. We means the academicians, those who are producing knowledge. So economists did not anticipate, because economists are dominating in economic policy and planning. Whether economists have advised, there are the economic advisor to the government, there is a Niti Aayog. Whether any time did you see that anything has been said before, like one rental housing or anything for migrant worker in any policy of the program? So actually the knowledge production is very biased. Knowledge production has failed. I will not hold government responsible. People in the government are politicians. They are political people, but it is our responsibility to raise the consciousness first and to bring the issue forward. So that is one thing. Second is that who are the people affected? Those people, those migrant workers who are affected are part of the informal sector. They are the seasonal temporary migrant who are staying 4 months, 6 months in the urban centers, and then coming back, and then again after a few months they are going. So this type of short-term circulatory migrant workers, mostly belonging to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. So that is very important. Who are affected? So pandemic is not an equalizer. Sometimes people misunderstand. Pandemic is affecting rich and poor equally. That is not the case. Pandemic is affecting everybody, but more it is affecting to the poor and scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. And there is a correspondence between scheduled caste and scheduled tribes and marginal, short-term circulatory migration. Okay, thank you.
Sir, I think there are a few more questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Sir,
you have time.
Sir, please answer this one. One of the students have written that development is a two-edged sword. What do we see from the present COVID situation?
Yeah, development, how we define, see, more production, more consumption. If there are no consumption, there is no production. And if there are more production, there should be consumption. So this, we are in trap of production, consumption, economic growth. We have to really think in a very, different way. What is local, what is localization, how local can become global, what is our needs and wants. So I think the question is, the person who asked the question is very right. It's a double-edged, and this is leading to crisis, one after another crisis. So world history, world economic history, if you see, there is a crisis, one after another. There is a financial crisis. There was not a financial crisis, was not an economic crisis. It was a crisis of the monetary system, supply and demand. So now we have economic crisis. So there will be, in this type of development, there will be one or other crisis will be there. And ultimately we have to become self-sufficient, focus on social development, more human approach to the development and rethinking development from below. Needs and wants and to be at the center of our development process. Okay.
So we from the faculty, we too are so elated with what all you have said. So, sir, we have some question from the.
Yes, sure.
Will there be any change in the morphology of Indian cities by the impact of COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes. There will be now more sanitization will be there, more beautification will be there, more poor people will leave the city. So city will be looking very neat, clean, beautiful, and you have now getting restructured and a lot of formalization within the city. So while people are returning back, now people are not getting that space where they were working. So there are spaces are being guarded and spaces will be allocated by municipal corporation to the selected group of people. So there will be a lot of exclusions and city will be a very exclusive domain and it will be center of privilege. It will be it is now center of wealth, but it will be more of wealth and more of exclusion in future. Unless we plan city for inclusive, from the inclusive perspective. So that's why right to the city becomes important. If city is producing wealth, how wealth is going to be distributed? So right to the city is a new slogan. And right to the city doesn't mean only that entering into the city. It is a collective right of urbanization, urban imagination, because urban can only provide access to education, healthcare, job opportunity. So urban need not be only in terms of Bombay and Delhi. Urbanization can go to other places also. So Purulia, it can go to Purulia, or it can go to Asansol, or it can go to Darbhanga, but it should go. So that's why the inclusive regional development, regionally balanced development can be from the vehicle of urbanization. We did not have to condemn urbanization, but we have to take urbanization to the people. People should not come, but then urban should go to the people. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So I would like my Professor Tushar Hembram to conclude the session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable speech. Am I audible to you, sir?
Yes, audible.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable speech. Now we will start the technical session too. Therefore, we would like to introduce our research person, Madam Professor Bhaswati Das, Associate Professor of Center for the Study of Regional Development under the School of Social Science, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. She is an eminent geographer and researcher. Her areas of specialization are population and development with special emphasis on maternal and child health, migration, aging, and nuptiality. She has done numerous research works in these fields and supervised many research scholars. Now, it is a precious opportunity to enrich ourselves with her lecture. Therefore, I request you, Madam, to initiate the valuable lecture session. Thank you.
Thank you, Tushar. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Tushar, for my introduction, and thanks to the organizer for calling me in this webinar, where I get the opportunity to address the students of Geography Department of Nistarini College. Thank you, Renukadi, for calling me, and thank you, Professor Bhagat, for setting up the stage in the right chord with the major theme, that is demography and COVID-19 pandemic. But there is always a problem when you are the last speaker, because the wide array of issues what has been touched by Professor Bhagat, there is hardly anything left for me to talk on COVID-19 situation. The way he has addressed and all pertinent issues have been talked upon. So that poses some challenge on me to talk. Anyway, there was a request that I should mix my lecture in English and Bengali because again that problem of the college is in a little outskirt and it will be convenient for the student to pick up that thing. So I will try to do that. And understanding Professor Bhagat's depth of knowledge and with my long-term interaction, I understood that I will really face a challenge to speak after him. So what I thought that I will take a historical journey to reach up to COVID-19. And it is very nicely he has mentioned how geography has become interdisciplinary and how understanding demography in that sense, the population characteristics or population dynamics or the development well-being which are targeted to the population, all these are important to understand any kind of pandemic. So with that, I will start going little beyond. Title of my talk is Journey of Plague, Epidemic and Pandemic, what I thought. এখানে আমি একটু বাংলা বলে শুরু করি। প্লেগ ইজ দ্য ওয়ার্ড, শব্দটা প্লাগা, গ্রিক ওয়ার্ড প্লাগা থেকে এসেছে এবং কয়েকটা ইংরেজি শব্দ যেটা মাল্টিপল ভাবে ইউজড হয় তার মধ্যে প্লেগ ইজ ওয়ান অ্যামং দেম। অনেক অনেক অর্থে ব্যবহার হয়েছে। প্রথমত এটি ব্যবহৃত, যেরকম প্লেগ আমরা জানি প্লেগ ইজ এ ডিজিজ, কন্টিজিয়াস ডিজিজ, সেটা তো আছে, কিন্তু বিগিনিং এ আমরা যখন দেখি দ্যাট প্লেগ শব্দটা অধিক মৃত্যুহার যুক্ত হঠাৎ ছড়িয়ে পড়া যে কোনো রোগ বোঝাতে প্রথম দিকে ব্যবহৃত হতো। So it was not necessarily related with plague as such. এটা গ্রিক শব্দ এবং এটা মেটাফর বা রূপক হিসাবে ইউজ করা হতো। It is a metaphor of high death rate related sudden spread of disease. প্রথম 17th centuryতে যখন রিয়েল প্লেগ we have seen 17th centuryতে, তখন এপিডেমিক ওয়ার্ডটা ফার্স্ট ইউজ হয়। Then plague was replaced and that time plague was actual plague, the disease plague. So the use of epidemic, এই এপিডেমিক শব্দটাও একটা গ্রিক ওয়ার্ড যার ইংলিশ মিনিং হচ্ছে প্রিভ্যালেন্ট এবং it is a combination of two words. প্রথম এপি means upon and the demos means people, যা মানুষকে engulf করে, মানে ঢেকে ফেলে, সেই ধরনের জিনিস অর্থে এপিডেমিক শব্দটা ইউজ হয়েছে। প্যান্ডেমিক শব্দটাও কিন্তু গ্রিক ওয়ার্ড and it is also a combination of two words. Pan means সবাই, across the globe, across the region, across the place and space. So pan, and then demos of course is the population অথবা জনগণ, জনসংখ্যা যেভাবেই ব্যবহার করা হোক। So pandemic word also was first used in the 17th century. যেরকম প্রত্যেকটি এপিডেমিক বা প্যান্ডেমিক বা হঠাৎ ঘটনা অনেক কিছুর ইনোভেশন আমাদের মাথায় দেয়। যেরকম আমরা জানি যে during Second World War there were several scientific innovation related to war technology, এবং সেই war technology গুলো were not confined only to the war, they have influenced our day-to-day life also. যেরকম সুইস নাইফ আমরা অনেকেই পরিচিত, যে মাল্টিপারপাস ইন দ্য প্যাকেজ অফ এ নাইফ, সেটা কিন্তু ওয়ার্ল্ড ওয়ার এর সময়ের আবিষ্কার একটা। তো যাই হোক, আমি এই জন্য কথাটা বললাম যে এই শব্দগুলো নানান ভাবে এসেছে। যেরকম আমরা নতুন একটা শব্দ কিন্তু এতেও পেয়েছি, স্টুডেন্টরা নিশ্চয়ই লক্ষ্য করে থাকবে, ইনফোডেমিক মানে হচ্ছে এপিডেমিক অফ ইনফরমেশন, from across the globe sudden burst of information. আমরা ইনফোডেমিকের মধ্যে দিয়েও যাচ্ছি এর সাথে সাথে। আর প্যান্ডেমিক হচ্ছে যে শব্দটা বললাম প্যান অ্যান্ড ডেমস, প্যান্ডেমিক শব্দটা ইউজ করা হয়েছিল যখন সিভিয়ারিটি ইজ এক্সেসিভলি হাই and it was first used during the influenza epidemic. যাই হোক, মোটামুটি বোঝা গেল whatever may be the word, এটা হচ্ছে যে একটা contagious disease which spreads across the place and space and where the probability of death is quite high. So today I'm trying to project a time scale wise this epidemic or pandemic or plague, whatever way you want to put it. আর যেহেতু থিমে ডেমোগ্রাফি শব্দটা রাখা হয়েছে এবং ডেমোগ্রাফি ইজ ভেরি ইন্টারডিসিপ্লিনারি থিং, জিওগ্রাফি থেকে তো দূরে নয়। তো সেই অনুযায়ী আমি যখন বলবো অনেক কিছু ডেথ ইত্যাদি ব্যাপারগুলো আসবে, ডেমোগ্রাফিক কিছু ইনফরমেশন আসবে এবং অনেক কিছু আমরা দেখতে পাবো যে প্যান্ডেমিকের মধ্যে যে সিমিলারিটি আছে ইন দেয়ার নেচার, কিছু কিছু নেচারে, নট ইন দ্য ডিজিজ বাট নেচার অফ গভর্নেন্স অ্যান্ড নেচার অফ স্প্রেড এইসবগুলো। So at this point, I would like to share the slide so that those who will not be able to follow Bengali, they can get some clue of my speaking on this. How? Let me try to share the slide. Yeah. I think I am audible enough.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. So, I have already introduced this thing. First, historical document of plague. As I said that initially we use the word plague only to understand any kind of sudden burst of disease. যখন আমরা হিস্টোরিক্যাল ডকুমেন্ট প্রথম পাই, দ্যাট ওয়াজ 430 to 426 বিসি, এথেন্সে এই প্লেগ ছড়িয়ে পড়েছিল এবং ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট টু আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ড অ্যান্ড আই থিঙ্ক দ্য প্রিভিয়াস লেকচার হ্যাজ গিভেন ইউ enough opportunity to understand that most of these are affecting urban centers first. It originates এবং এথেন্সে যে হয়েছিল, এথেন্স তখন একটা সিটি স্টেট ছিল এবং মৃতের সংখ্যা অত্যন্ত বেশি সিটি স্টেটের, অলমোস্ট 25% মৃত্যু হয়েছিল এই প্লেগটি দিয়ে এবং সেই সংখ্যাটা ছিল, নানান রকমের এস্টিমেট পাওয়া যায় বিকজ উই ল্যাক ডেটা ডিউরিং দ্যাট টাইম, সো এস্টিমেট ভ্যারিজ। It was around 75,000 to 1 lakh. আর সবচেয়ে ইম্পর্টেন্ট হলো যে এটা কিন্তু even the elites were affected during that time, and Athens was city state mostly dominated by military power এবং এথেন্সের যিনি জেনারেল ছিলেন, যিনি হেড, যিনি এথেন্সের উপর রুল করতেন, সেই জেনারেলের নাম ছিল পেরিক্লেস। তিনিও এই মহামারীতে মারা যান। কাজেই বোঝাই যায় যে অ্যাক্সেস ওয়াজ রিয়েলি হিউজ। এবং what was the cause of this plague? As I told you earlier, that plague was, the word was used to understand any kind of disease outbreak. So different kind of কোনো কোনো হিস্টোরিক্যাল ডেমোগ্রাফার বলেন 13টি প্যাথোজেন ছিল, কেউ কেউ বলেন 20টি প্যাথোজেন এই লং পিরিয়ড অফ এপিডেমিকটা রুল করেছিল। বাট মোস্ট প্রবাবল প্রমিনেন্ট reason which has come was typhoid এবং রিসেন্টলি দেখা যাচ্ছে যে যে ধরনের সিমটম যে depicted হয়েছে on historical document, literature, in art, culture, everywhere, সেটা কিন্তু ইন্ডিকেটিং টুয়ার্ডস দ্য এবোলা ভাইরাস অর হেমারেজিক ফিভার। খুব কমন নাম, আমরা রিসেন্টলি আবার কিন্তু এবোলা বার্স্ট দেখেছি। তো we get the existence of Ebola during BC 426 BC অব্দি Ebola ছিল। নেক্সট আমরা যে মেজর আউটব্রেকটা পাই সেটাকে বলা হচ্ছে অ্যান্টোনাইন প্লেগ। অ্যান্টোনাইন প্লেগের ডকুমেন্ট আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি 161 থেকে 180 এডি। এই সময় ছিল রোমান এম্পায়ারদের মধ্যে, এবং রোমান এম্পায়ারদের মধ্যে খুব ইম্পর্টেন্ট টু আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ড যে গ্রিক রোমান দের যে ধরনের philosophy of resource monitoring or population monitoring or philosophy of well-being যেটা ছিল, they were always the so-called colonizer. They used to war-ridden areas they were. তারা আশেপাশের সমস্ত জায়গার ভিতরে সবসময় রাজ্য জয়ের স্পৃহা যেটাকে আমরা বলি সেই ইয়েতে থাকতো, এবং তাদের আর্মি স্ট্রেংথ ওয়াজ দ্য স্ট্রেংথ অফ দ্য স্টেট। এবং সেক্ষেত্রে কি দেখা যাচ্ছে যে আমার থার্ড পয়েন্টটা খুব ইম্পর্টেন্ট, যে সোলজারেরা সেলুসিয়া বলে একটি জায়গা রাজ্য যেটা নর্থ ইস্ট অফ মেডিটেরেনিয়ান সি, সেইখান থেকে রাজ্য জয় করে ফেরার সময় সেখানে লোকালাইজড ভাবে স্মল পক্স আউটব্রেক হয়েছিল, and that smallpox has come with the soldier and it had affected Asia Minor, Egypt, Greece and Italy. Huge territory, মানে যেটাকে আমরা প্যান্ডেমিক বলতে পারি আর কি, যে across the pan population was affected. Asia Minor itself was a big region. Along with that, Egypt, Greece, Italy সমস্ত জায়গায় এটা ছড়িয়ে পড়ে। এবং রোমান এম্পায়াররা, এটা খুব ইম্পর্টেন্ট আরেকটা জিনিস, যে রাজ্য জয় কিন্তু দু ধরনের হয়। হ্যাঁ, some of the time আমরা দেখেছি যে during even in our country, like invaders have come, they invaded, they have accumulated some resources and then they left the country. That is also a kind of thing. Whereas sometimes when people conquer a land, that becomes under the direct administrative control of the conqueror. এই যে রোমান যে এম্পায়ারটা সেই সময় কিন্তু পলিটিক্যালি এন্ড ইকোনমিক্যালি ইন্টিগ্রেটেড ছিল, দে ডিডন্ট লেফট দোজ কলোনাইজড রিজিয়ন। ফলে কি হলো, এই যে এত লং স্ট্রেচ, জিওগ্রাফিক্যাল স্ট্রেচ ধরে যে স্প্রেড হলো ডিজিজটা স্মল পক্স, সেটা কন্টিনিউ করলো বিকজ অফ ফ্রি মোবিলিটি উইদিন দ্যাট and the economic dependence between those regions and political movement, কেননা যেদিকে যে ধরনের রিকোয়ারমেন্ট ছিল নেতারা বা পলিটিক্যাল লিডাররা সেই সময় যারা ছিলেন, রাজা এবং তার পারিষদ বা লোকাল অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেটর, তাদের মুভমেন্ট কন্টিনিউ করেছিল। ফলে because of that integrated political and economic system, it spreaded over that cohesive society and it continued for a long period of time, 161 to 180 AD, quite a long period of time. এবং over that year, the death was very high, estimated was around 5 million or 50 lakh. এবং এখানে কি দেখা যাচ্ছে যে একভাবে স্প্রেডটা থাকেনি, ঠিক কোভিড এর মতন অনেকগুলো পিক এসছে, পিক গেছে, সেইভাবে থেকেছে। বাট রোমান এম্পায়ার ওয়াজ উইকেন্ড বিকজ অফ দ্যাট প্লেগ এপিসোড। Third, what we could see is Justinian plague, যেটা আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি actual plague. This was actual plague by modern sense, যখন এই ইয়ারসিনিয়া পেস্টিস বা এই যে রডেন্ট দিয়ে ছড়িয়ে পড়া যে গ্ল্যান্ডের ডিজিজ, ডেডলি ডিজিজ, সেইটার মধ্যে আমরা দেখতে পাই এটা সিক্স সেঞ্চুরিতে রিয়েল প্লেগ হয়েছিল এবং অরিজিনেটেড আইদার ইন ইথিওপিয়া অর ইজিপ্ট। তারপরে স্প্রেড দেখলে জিওগ্রাফি স্টুডেন্টরা নিঃসন্দেহে বুঝতে পারছে যে সেন্ট্রাল এশিয়ান স্টেপে is a very big region which crosses Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, Ukraine, Western Russia, Siberia, Kazakhstan, Xinjiang, Mongolia, Manchuria, পুরো ইউরোপ থেকে শুরু করে ইস্টার্ন পার্ট থেকে শুরু করে এন্টার স্ট্রেচ ইউরেশিয়া ক্রস করে রাশিয়া, এন্টার এরিয়ার মধ্যে এই জিনিসটা ছড়িয়ে পড়েছিল। কেন ছড়িয়ে পড়েছিল? Because again through travel, the migration and mobility. That time it was mostly concentrated with the mobility, কেননা trade mobility was quite huge. এবং এটা ওই ট্রেড রুট দিয়ে যে ক্যারাভান ট্রেডিং রুট আমি যেটা লিখেছি, দ্যাট ক্যারাভান ট্রেডিং রুট এই বিস্তৃত অঞ্চল জুড়ে ছড়িয়ে পড়েছিল এবং দীর্ঘদিন ধরে ছড়িয়েছিল। এবং খুব ইন্টারেস্টিং ওয়ার্ড দ্য হিস্টোরিয়ানস অ্যান্ড ইকোনমিক হিস্টোরিয়ানস ইউজেস, the phrase is very interesting. They said this is exchange of infection as well as of goods. মানে শুধু গুডস এক্সচেঞ্জ হতো তা নয়, ইনফেকশনটাও এক্সচেঞ্জ হতো along this route এবং it was extremely brutal, অত্যন্ত নির্মম ছিল in the coastal cities, কেননা সেটার থ্রু দিয়েও অনেক জিনিসপত্র আদান প্রদান হতো। Along with that, of course, Europe always until Second World War and establishment of UN, there was military movement continued from Europe to towards Asia, I will say, and military movement also contributed to spread of this disease. এবং সেই মিলিটারি মুভমেন্ট থ্রুতে এশিয়া মাইনর, আফ্রিকা, আবার ইতালি and further to ওয়েস্টার্ন ইউরোপ অবধি ছড়িয়ে পড়েছিল। এবং এর যে সমস্ত বর্ণনা আমরা লিটারেচারে বা হিস্টোরিক্যাল ডকুমেন্ট হুইচ গিভস, যে এই প্লেগের বর্ণনা ভয়াবহ, কেননা রাস্তাঘাট সমস্ত শূন্য হয়ে গেছিল, ট্রেড অনেক সময় অ্যাবান্ডন করে দিয়েছিল, তখনও কিন্তু কোয়ারেন্টাইনের প্রসেসটা আসেনি। আমি আসছি কোয়ারেন্টাইনের প্রসেসে এরপরে। ট্রেড অ্যাবান্ডন মানে ছেড়ে দিয়ে লোকেরা ভয়ের চোটে চলে যেত। এবং কেন এটা ডেডলি ছিল? পপুলেশন অফ দ্য এম্পায়ার, যেটাকে বলা হচ্ছে রোমান এম্পায়ার, reduced by 40%. Our city of Constantinople itself, it is possible that figure exceeded 50%. মানে সিটির পপুলেশনের লসটা আরো বেশি হয়েছিল। এবং everywhere it is very interesting to see the city is much more affected initially. In most of the cases, historically, like COVID-19, this thing has bypassed the rural areas. The spread of disease has bypassed the rural area for different reasons. The mobility অনেক কম, সবাই যে শহরের সঙ্গে ইন্টারঅ্যাক্ট করে তা নয়, এবং ওরা রিলেটিভলি পপুলেশন ডেন্সিটি ইন রুরাল এরিয়াস আর লেস, কেননা যখনই কন্টাগুয়াস ডিজিজ হয় ডেন্সিটি প্লেজ অ্যান ইম্পর্টেন্ট ফ্যাক্টর। কেননা এক্ষেত্রেও আমরা দেখতে পাই যে অধিকাংশ ক্ষেত্রে যেখানে ডেন্সলি পপুলেটেড লোক থাকে সেখানে যখন ডিজিজ স্প্রেড হয়, ইট বিকামস ভেরি রিস্কি, এক্সট্রিমলি রিস্কি, স্প্রেড বিকামস। তো সেই জন্য কনস্টান্টিনোপলের পপুলেশন রিডিউসড বাই 50%, যেখানে কিনা অন্যান্য জায়গার পপুলেশন 40% ওভারঅল পপুলেশন। আর রোমান এম্পায়ার যে একটা প্রভূত উইকনেস তৈরি হয়ে গেল। কেন তৈরি হলো আমি বলছি, যে এত ভয়ঙ্কর ছিল এই প্লেগের দৃশ্য, যা সমস্ত বলা হয়েছে বা আমরা যা চিত্র পেয়েছি। Even staple food becomes scarce. Food scarcity, it followed by famine. Food scarcity was extreme. So not only with plague, people died out of starvation also. Mane disease multiplied with starvation, double burden of crisis. এই সময় যে বাইজেন্টাইন এম্পায়ার, যেটাকে বাইজেন্টাইন এম্পায়ারকে সে প্রায় 1000 বছর রাজত্ব করেছিল in this region, and they actually have shown ways for many of the modern days things. Shown ways মানে বাইজেন্টাইন সাম্রাজ্যতে পাবলিক পলিসি খুব অ্যাডভান্স লেভেলের কিছু পাবলিক পলিসিস ছিল, অ্যাডভান্স লেভেলের পাবলিক ইনস্টিটিউশনস ছিল, এবং সেই পাবলিক পলিসি and the institutions were mostly dependent on the good tax collection. সেই tax base has shrunk because of this epidemic. It was such a widespread locational thing যে tax base শুকিয়ে যেতে থাকলো, এবং ইকোনমিক আউটপুট যেটা টোটাল যে অর্থনৈতিক যে জিনিসটা, সেই অ্যাক্টিভিটিসটাই কমে গেল, যেটা আমরা এখনো দেখতে পাচ্ছি যে ডিক্রিজড। কেননা সরকারের দিক থেকে সেইভাবে কোয়ারেন্টাইন পাবলিক পলিসি হিসাবে এখনো আসেনি। In spite of that, people themselves were scared. They minimized their activities. And যারা সার্ভাইভ করেছিল তাদের উপরে এত বেশি ট্যাক্সের বার্ডেন ছিল বিকজ দ্য সার্ভাইভাল অফ দ্য এন্টায়ার স্টেট রিলেটেড অ্যাক্টিভিটিস। ফলে কি হলো, বাইজেন্টাইনদের যে আর্মি ছিল, আর্মি ওয়াজ দ্য ওয়ার্স্ট সাফারার। কেননা আমি বলছি যে ইউরোপের সেই সময়টা খুব আর্মি সেন্ট্রিক ছিল, মিলিটারি সেন্ট্রিক ছিল, ওরা রাজ্য জয় এবং রিসোর্স কালেকশনে খুব বিশ্বাস করতো। এমন একটা অবস্থা হয়েছিল যে আর্মির র্যাঙ্ক অ্যান্ড ফাইল যারা হায়ার অথরিটিস, সেই পোস্ট গুলো অব্দি পূরণ করতে পারা যাচ্ছিল না, এবং আর্মিতে জয়েন করার লোক ছিল না, কারণ আর্মি হলেই মোবিলিটি, মোবিলিটি হলেই ডেথ। সেই অবস্থার মধ্যে দিয়ে এই প্লেগের এপিসোডটা চলেছিল। ফার্স্ট এটার আউটব্রেক ওয়াজ initiated in 1549 AD and continued little beyond 600 AD. এবং during that time এই পপুলেশন লস হয়েছিল। এই জাস্টিনিয়ান প্লেগ দিয়ে অনেক বেশি হিস্টোরিক্যাল অ্যান্ড কালচারাল ডকুমেন্ট আমরা পাই, because of the weakening of a strong Byzantine empire. এই সময় কিন্তু, এবং কোনো ব্যাখ্যা, there was no explanation behind this disease. তো মানুষের ভেতর যে কুসংস্কার আসা, কিছু কিছু ইভিল স্পিরিটে বিশ্বাস করা, তারপরে বিশ্বাস তৈরি হওয়া যে দিস আর দ্য পানিশমেন্ট ফর সিনস, তারপরে এটা হচ্ছে গডস ফিউরি, গডস wrath বিকজ অফ আওয়ার সিন। এবং ইজিপ্ট ইত্যাদি জায়গায় যেরকম কিছু কিছু অথার বলেন যে মেয়েদের যে কনফাইনমেন্টের ট্র্যাডিশনটা অনেক সময় এটার থেকেও এসছে যে তারা বাইরে বেরোবে না, দে আর পারপিট্রেটর অফ সিন, এইভাবে এস্টাবলিশড হতে থাকে। এবং এই মিসফরচুন, সব কিছুর সঙ্গে একটা মিসফরচুন রিলেটেড টু মিসফরচুন, over reliance of religion or religious, not religion but religious, I must say that blindness and misinterpretation, wrong interpretation of religion, এই সমস্ত একটা কালচারাল যে রেলটা ছিল সেটার ভেতরও কিন্তু ব্রেক আসতে শুরু করে এই সময়টার মধ্যে। এবং physical, economic, cultural infrastructure of Byzantine Empire really started experiencing major challenge. তখন আমরা দেখতে পাই যে এই অশোকের স্প্রেডটা ইজিপ্ট মিশর অব্দি ছিল, আরবের দিকে অনেক কম ছিল। এই একটা টাইম যেই সময় the Arab tribes moving through sparsely populated area, যাদের আমরা বেদুইন ইত্যাদি বলে থাকি, সেই ট্রাইবেরা যারা এরিড রিজনের মধ্যে স্পার্সলি পপুলেটেড এরিয়ার মধ্যে থাকতো এবং প্র্যাকটিসিং এ ফর্ম অফ প্রোটেক্টিভ আইসোলেশন দ্যাট সেট দ্য স্টেজ অফ এক্সপ্যানশন অফ ইসলাম। ধীরে ধীরে সাদার্ন ইউরোপ অব্দি দ্যাট প্রোটেক্টিভ আইসোলেশন অর ইসলামিক এক্সপেনশন শুরু হয়। এদের এই প্রোটেক্টিভ আইসোলেশনের স্প্রেডটা বাইজেন্টাইন টাইমের থেকে আমরা দেখতে পাই। তাহলে হোয়াট ইজ দ্যাট? ইট ইজ নট এ মেয়ার ডিজিজ, ইট ইজ নট এ মেয়ার ডেথ। দ্য নাম্বার অফ ডেথ, ফিয়ার অফ ডেথ, এগুলো এত ভয়ঙ্কর ছিল যে ইট হ্যাজ শেকেন দ্য এন্টায়ার, and not only economy, it shaken the entire cultural base, and that itself has affected the again economy. যেটা প্রফেসর ভাগবত অলরেডি বলেছেন যে all these things are very much interlinked with each other, সেটা বারবার established হয়েছে over this period of time. Now let me come to black death. এটা নিয়ে আমরা বেশিরভাগ লোক কিছু না কিছু ভাবে পরিচিত। এটা হচ্ছে সবচেয়ে বেশি চর্চিত হয়েছে ইতিহাসে, কেননা এই সময়ের মধ্যে এভিডেন্স, we have started collecting evidence very scientifically. তো বুবনিক প্লেগ, যেটার অরিজিন আমরা দেখতে পাই হয়েছিল ইন চায়না ইন 1334, and again following Silk Route it reached to Europe in 1347, আর এটা কন্টিনিউ করেছিল at least up to 14,000, little beyond 1400, sorry, little beyond 1400. Within these 50 years এবার একটুখানি অ্যালার্মিং বটে যে গ্লোবাল পপুলেশন, ডিফারেন্ট এস্টিমেট আছে, গ্লোবাল পপুলেশন রিডিউসড অ্যারাউন্ড 100 to 150 মিলিয়ন within this 50-year period. এবং ব্ল্যাক ডেথের অনেকেই ছোটবেলায় আমরা সেই রাইম করে একসঙ্গে আমরা খেলেছি, রিঙ্গা রিঙ্গা রোজেস, পকেট ফুল অফ রোজেস। তো সেটা হচ্ছে আমাদের মিসপ্রোনাউন্সিয়েশন, অ্যাকচুয়ালি ওটা ব্ল্যাক ডেথকে বলা হয়েছিল, ওই যে রেড র্যাশেস, রিং অফ রেড র্যাশেস, দ্যাট ওয়াজ দ্য ফার্স্ট লাইন অ্যাকচুয়ালি। তো আমরা মিসপ্রোনাউন্স করে রিঙ্গা রিঙ্গা রোজেস, পকেট ফুল অফ রোজেস, অল ফেল ডাউন ইজ অল ডায়েড। ওই যে আমরা দুঃখ করে বসে পড়ি সবাই হাত ধরে রিঙ্গা রিঙ্গা রোজ খেতে খেতে, এক্স্যাক্টলি দ্যাট ওয়াজ দ্য সিচুয়েশন অফ ব্ল্যাক ডেথ। রাস্তা অব্দি ডেড বডি ছিল, সমস্ত জায়গা মিউনিসিপাল কর্পোরেশনরা ফেল করছিল। এখানে একটা কালচারাল ব্রেক থ্রু, নট ব্রেক থ্রু, little bit of deviation what we can see, ব্ল্যাক ডেথের টেনিয়রে ইউরোপে কিন্তু ক্রিমেশন প্র্যাকটিস করা শুরু হয়েছিল, বিকজ দেয়ার ওয়াজ ডার্থ অফ গ্রেভিয়ার্ড, এত হিউজ ডেথ হয়েছিল। এবং 60% লাইভস অফ ইউরোপ দ্যাট ক্লেম ডিউরিং দ্যাট 50 ইয়ার্স। এবং খুব ইন্টারেস্টিং যে পিরিয়ডটা ব্ল্যাক ডেথের পরে, অনেক পরে কিন্তু প্লেগ আউটব্রেক হয়েছিল ইন্ডিয়াতে, যখন ইন্ডিয়া কলোনাইজড ছিল। and very interestingly that India's public health infrastructure or the sanitation system for that matter was developed by the British, because they were facing tremendous trade blockage by France and Italy. They were not allowing of passing any ships from India until and unless Britishers were taking any measures to control plague in India. তো সেই হিসাবে প্রথম আমাদের স্যানিটাইজেশন প্রোগ্রাম আসে, এবং আমাদের স্যানিটাইজেশন প্রোগ্রাম আমরা যদি হিস্টোরিক্যাল ডকুমেন্ট দেখি, it was confined to the British colonies or the cantonments or the zones where they used to live. তারপরে ধীরে ধীরে সর্বসাধারণ বা আম জনতা যেখানে থাকে সেই দিকে ছড়ানো হয়েছে। প্রথম দিকে সেটা ছিল না, বিকজ দেয়ার ট্রেড ওয়াজ সাফারিং এ লট। তো এই হচ্ছে ব্ল্যাক ডেথের ভয়াবহতা। এবং ব্ল্যাক ডেথের যে ডেথ রেটটা ছিল আমরা যদি দেখি, তোমরা এটা মানে ভয়ঙ্কর, শুনলে গায়ে কাটা দেয়। Mortality of untreated bubonic plague was close to 70%. মানে infected 70% used to die within 8 days, and those deaths were extremely painful, with blood vomiting, with brittle skin and glands like that. আর যেটা নিউমোনিক প্লেগ ছিল সেটার মর্টালিটি ছিল ক্লোজ টু 95% because no treatment was available during that time. প্লেগ যখন কন্ট্রোল করার মতন অবস্থা এলো, মানে পেনিসিলিন বা নট পেনিসিলিন, অ্যান্টিবায়োটিক যখন আবিষ্কার হলো, তারপরে কিন্তু প্লেগের ডেথ রেট হ্যাজ কাম ডাউন টু 11%. বাট অ্যাট দ্যাট টাইম ইট ওয়াজ সো স্কেয়ারি যে এই ডেথ রেটের থেকে প্লেগ হলে মারা যাবেই সেই আশঙ্কায় সমস্ত অ্যাক্টিভিটিস বন্ধ হয়ে গেছিল। Again, Black Death also bypassed sparsely populated rural areas, এবং it was mostly concentrated in densely populated urban areas. লন্ডনেরই আমরা কিছু কিছু এস্টিমেট পাই যে জনসংখ্যা 50% এর উপর, হাফ হয়ে গেছিল লন্ডনের জনসংখ্যা, which is such a sophisticated city now. এবং রিজনেবল কোনো এক্সপ্লেনেশনও পাওয়া যাচ্ছিল না যে এক্স্যাক্টলি কিভাবে এটা স্প্রেড হচ্ছে। আবার সেই রিলিজিয়াস বিলিফ বা মানে মিসফরচুনের উপর বিশ্বাস করা, কুসংস্কার ইত্যাদি প্রভৃতি বাড়তে থাকলেও অনেক সেটেলমেন্ট মানে সম্পূর্ণভাবে ওয়াইপড আউট হয়ে গেছিল। সেখানে কিছু কিছু ডেসক্রিপশন ইংলিশ লিটারেচারে ব্ল্যাক ডেথ নিয়ে খুব বেশি লেখা আছে, যেখানে দেখা আছে যে স্ট্যান্ডিং ক্রপ কাটার মতন, মানে হারভেস্ট পিপল দেয়ার ওয়ার ল্যাক অফ লেবার টু হারভেস্ট ইভেন দ্য স্ট্যান্ডিং ক্রপ। তো ট্রাভেল, ট্রেড সমস্ত কিছু কার্টেল করা হয়েছিল, এবং অবভিয়াসলি when there was not much labor to harvest, food or manufacturing goods এর তো অভাব হবেই। এবং অনেক ক্ষেত্রে ইকোনমিক হিস্টোরিয়ানরা বলে যে এইভাবে লেবার ফোর্স এবং প্লেগের একটা ইউনিকনেস ছিল, প্লেগ এফেক্টেড দ্য ইয়াং পিপল ভেরি হাইলি। তো লেবার ফোর্সের একটা শর্টেজ এসেছিল, এই শর্টেজটা অ্যাকচুয়ালি পুশড, এনকারেজ ফর দ্য ইনোভেশন অফ লেবার সেভিং টেকনোলজি। এইভাবে ধীরে ধীরে ইন্ডাস্ট্রিয়াল রিভলিউশন যেভাবে এগ্রিকালচারাল প্রোডাক্টিভিটি ইমপ্রুভমেন্ট থেকে যেভাবে গেছিল, তো যেহেতু লোক পাওয়া যাচ্ছে না, লেবার সেভিং টেকনোলজি ওয়াজ পুশড ফর and lead to the higher productivity. শুধু তাই না, এই প্রথম মানে শুরু হলো ইন সার্চ অফ পাবলিক পলিসি কিছু দিয়ে। ইউরোপ এত এফেক্ট হয়ে যাচ্ছে বারবার, এবং নট অনলি দ্য ইকোনমিক অ্যাক্টিভিটি ফর দ্য এন্টায়ার সোসাইটি, সেই জন্য পাবলিক পলিসি ইত্যাদি ফ্রেম হওয়ার চেষ্টা শুরু হলো। সেই জন্য এরপরে ব্ল্যাক ডেথের পরে আমরা সেম ইন্টেন্সিটিতে আর কিন্তু প্যান্ডেমিক সেইভাবে দেখতে পাই না। এই হচ্ছে টাইম যখন কোয়ারেন্টাইনের কথা ভাবা হলো। ড্রয়িং ফ্রম এক্সপিরিয়েন্সেস ফ্রম এনশিয়েন্ট কালচার, একদম পুরোনো দিনে ইজিপশিয়ান কালচারে আমরা কিছু কিছু এভিডেন্স দেখতে পাই যে কোনো অসুখ করলে তাকে আউটস্কার্ট করে দেওয়া। তোমরা নিশ্চয়ই পূজারিনী পড়ে থাকবে, স্টুডেন্টরা বিশেষ করে। সন্ন্যাসী উপগুপ্ত প্রাচীরের তলে একদা ছিলেন সুপ্ত। নগরের নটিকে যেখানে বার করে দেওয়া হয়েছিল, কেননা নগরের নটি ছিল পক্স হয়েছিল তার, হ্যাঁ, তাকে নগরের বাইরে, মানে she was left to die outside the city because she was suffering from pox, এবং তাকে সেবা বৌদ্ধ যারা ছিলেন, শ্রমণ যারা ছিলেন তারা। তো নগরের বাইরে কেন? ইট ওয়াজ এ মেথড অফ কাইন্ড অফ কোয়ারেন্টাইন। তাহলে রেস্ট অফ দ্য সিটি উইল বি রিলিভড ফ্রম দ্য স্প্রেড অফ দ্য ডিজিজ। তো ড্রয়িং ফ্রম দোজ এনশিয়েন্ট এক্সপিরিয়েন্সেস, প্র্যাকটিস অফ কোয়ারেন্টাইন বিগেন ডিউরিং দিস টাইম। এই প্লেগের টাইম থেকে শুরু হলো 14th century to protect প্রথমে কোস্টাল সিটিজ ফ্রম প্লেগ এপিডেমিক, এবং ইন্টারেস্টিংলি দেখে থাকবে তোমরা যে বারবার কিন্তু ইটালির নাম উঠে আসছে। সেই প্রথম থেকে ইটালি ইজ এফেক্টেড till today we saw the outbreak, severity of outbreak in Italy. Ships arriving in Venice from the infected ports were required to sit and anchor for 40 days before landing. মানে বাইরেই 40 দিন থাকবে, তারপরে সেই শিপকে was allowed to arrive in the port. সেই প্র্যাকটিস সমস্ত ইউরোপের সমস্ত পোর্টে শুরু হলো, এবং এই শব্দটার থেকেই কিন্তু কোয়ারেন্টাইন শব্দটা এসছে। ইতালির experience with different endemic or epidemic was so bad, they started doing this thing. যে শব্দটা হচ্ছে actually quarantena journey, which means 40 days after journey. 40 days after journey. That means 40 days isolation after journey, যেখান থেকে আমরা এই শব্দটার ব্যবহার দেখতে পাই। তারপরে যে প্যান্ডেমিকটার অরিজিন হয়, ব্ল্যাক ডেথের মতন অত ওয়াইড স্প্রেড সত্যি এরপরে আর হয়নি, কিন্তু ডেডলি আরেকটা প্যান্ডেমিক হয়েছিল, যেটা হচ্ছে স্প্যানিশ ফ্লু। এটার কথাও আমরা অনেকে হয়তো শুনে থাকবো, স্পেশালি এটার রেফারেন্স বারবার আসছে টু ডিউরিং দ্য COVID-19 understanding the COVID-19. Spanish flu duration হচ্ছে 1918 to 1920, very short period of time. এবং স্প্যানিশ ফ্লুকে সেই হিসাবে বললে মানে কাব্যে উপেক্ষিতও বলা যায়। অনেক প্যান্ডেমিকের মধ্যে এটা একটা 20th century ফার্স্ট ডিকেডে actual pandemic. Spanish flu was actual pandemic, কেননা এটা গ্লোবালি ছড়িয়েছিল অন্যান্য অনেক বেশি দেশের মধ্যে। It was the spread was huge, এবং কেন এটা হিউজ হয়েছিল সেটাও কিন্তু খুব ইন্টারেস্টিং। If you see the time period, it was again with one military activity. It was in between the First World War. এবং অনেকে মনে করে, অনেক ঐতিহাসিক বলেন there was no First World War or no Second World War. It is a continuum of war with a break during pandemic. অনেক হিস্টোরিয়ান সেইভাবে এটাকে অ্যানালাইজ করেন, কেননা ওনারা বলেন যে এই ব্রেকটা আসতে বাধ্য হয়েছিল বিকজ অফ দিস স্প্যানিশ ফ্লু প্যান্ডেমিক। এই সময় যেটা আমি প্রথমেই বললাম যে যে কোনো যুদ্ধ, সেটা রোগের বিরুদ্ধেই হোক কি শত্রুর বিরুদ্ধেই হোক কি রাজ্য জয়ের জন্যই হোক, যে কোনো যুদ্ধ আমাদের অনেক কিছু ইনোভেট করতে সাহায্য করে। এবং এই একটা টাইম পিরিয়ড যেটা কিন্তু আমাদের মডার্ন মেডিসিন ইনোভেট করার জন্য ফার্স্ট ভেরি বিগ পুশ হুইচ হ্যাজ কাম থ্রু স্প্যানিশ ফ্লু। ইনফেকশাস ডিজিজ, এপিডেমিওলজিক্যাল স্টাডি অফ নেচার, সেই সমস্তগুলো ধীরে ধীরে স্টার্টেড আনফোল্ডিং। এবং স্প্যানিশ ফ্লুর যেটা কারণ ছিল বলা হয় যে H1N1 strain of the influenza virus যেটা পারপেচুয়েট করেছিল। এবং যেটা আমি বললাম এটা একটা বড় অ্যাক্টিভিটির just a minute I'm attending one call for a second. হ্যাঁ আশিস, বাড়িতে আমি একটা লেকচার দিচ্ছি, তুমি যদি আধ ঘন্টা পরে এসো ভালো হয়। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, আমি বাড়ি থেকে একটা লেকচার দিচ্ছি। হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে, আমি বন্ধ করছি। হ্যাঁ সরি। This is the problem when you work from home. You attend so many things. Anyway, so it was. Am I audible?
Yeah, ma'am.
So it was with the influenza H1N1 deadly virus. All of you, we are familiar with that strain. of the virus. And এটা হচ্ছে যে যেটা বললাম যে শুধু ইউরোপ না, it was in the mid of First World War. So globally there was movement of the army or army related population, not only army, armyর সঙ্গে ডাক্তার, আর্মিতে সার্ভ করার লোক ইত্যাদি প্রভৃতি। ফলে গ্লোবালি ছড়িয়ে পড়তে কোনো অসুবিধা হয়নি। ইউএসএ, এশিয়া, আফ্রিকা, প্যাসিফিক আইল্যান্ড সর্বত্র এই স্প্যানিশ ফ্লু again spread through tremendous mobility, increased mobility due to the war. এবং mortality rate was ranged between not as high as plague, it was 10% to 20%. Over a quarter of the global population contracted the flu, কিন্তু mortality was not as high as plague. সেই জন্য around 50 million or possibly 100 million, again because of lack of data আমরা বেশি ইনফরমেশন পাই না। কিন্তু স্প্যানিশ ফ্লুর এত ওয়াইড স্প্রেড, ইট ওয়াজ রিয়েল প্যান্ডেমিক ফর দ্যাট সেন্স, বাট কাব্যে উপেক্ষিতার মতন ইট ওয়াজ এ ফরগটেন প্যান্ডেমিক বলা হয়ে থাকে। কেননা তিনটে রিজন দেওয়া হয়ে থাকে যে আমরা কেন এইটার উপরে বেশি attention দিইনি, বা why we did not continue with that research of the viral fevers like H1N1, এবং we are also citing that as a reason that why we have been shaken by a virus like this SARS COVID-19. এটার এক্সপ্লেনেশন বলা হয়ে থাকে যে এটা যেহেতু not continued for a long period of time, very short period of time. Second হচ্ছে যে was very engrossed with military and political activities due to the First World War, সেই সমস্ত কারণে, এবং মর্টালিটিটা প্লেগের মতন অত বেশি ছিল না। এই সমস্ত কারণে এই সময় স্প্যানিশ ফ্লুটা অত অ্যাটেনশন ড্র করেনি। At the same time, when we are talking about population, it is very important to mention যে এই সময়ের মধ্যে কিন্তু আমরা ধীরে ধীরে we have started experiencing population gain. But prior to that, এর আগে অবধি আমি যে স্লাইড গুলো দেখালাম তার আগে অবধি কিন্তু আমাদের পপুলেশন ওয়াজ ইন দ্য ফার্স্ট স্টেজ অফ ডেমোগ্রাফিক ট্রানজিশন, আমাদের বাড়ছেই না। ডেথ অ্যান্ড বার্থ ওয়াজ অলমোস্ট ইকুয়াল, যত জন্মায় তত মরে করে 0.3%, 0.5% পৌঁছতেই ওয়ার্ল্ডে অনেক দিন টাইম লেগেছে। বাট দিস ইজ দ্য টাইম when we have already started experiencing a little increase in population due to several scientific innovation, improvement of health condition initiated by better productivity of agricultural product. সেই সমস্ত কারণে মাল্টিপল কারণে, এবং এটার স্প্রেডটা কম সময়ের জন্য মাল্টিপল কারণে it did not draw much of our attention. এবং এটাকে একটা কারণ হিসেবেও দেখা হয় যে আমরা যেহেতু এই ভাইরাল জিনিসগুলো স্পেশালি H1N1 টাইপের জিনিসটাকে নিয়ে বেশি পারসিউ করিনি, কোভিড নিয়েও বেশি পারসিউ করিনি, সেই জন্য আমরা বেশি সাফার করছি ডিউরিং দিস টাইম পিরিয়ড অফ COVID-19. আদার দেন দ্যাট আমাদের আর কয়েকটা ওয়েভ এসছে অফ ডিফারেন্ট, তার মধ্যে যেটা সবচেয়ে ইম্পর্টেন্ট হচ্ছে HIV and AIDS. This virus is still prevailing, continuing, এবং slowly progressing global pandemic through decades of time. Spread ভীষণ slow, it spreaded very slowly, affected the people who are practicing a risky lifestyle kind of thing like multi-partnership. কেননা এটা দেখা গেছিল প্রথম আউটব্রেকটা হয়েছিল among the gay population in USA, same-sex population, especially সেম সেক্স মেল পপুলেশনের মধ্যে আউটব্রেকটা প্রথম হয়েছিল। কাজেই খুব ইজিলি কারণটা আইডেন্টিফাই করা গেছিল এবং do's and don'ts started coming very quickly এবং প্রিভ্যালেন্স রেটটাও খুব কম ছিল। ইট ওয়াজ প্রিভ্যালেন্স রেট ওয়াজ only 0.79% global population. ফলে we got some time to work upon the not exactly cure but to expand the lifespan even among the infected population. এবং along with that HIV/AIDS, we have started observing some kind of changes in our entire lifestyle. What is those lifestyle? তোমরা সবাই জানো যে HIV/AIDS pandemic কে ফলো করে কিন্তু government has started roping up with the NGOs to target the red light areas, to use them, force them rather, the clients to use condom so that it does not spread. সেটা একটা lifestyle change in entire India. In fact, globally, maybe locally some violation might have been happening. কিন্তু যখন আমরা institutionally দেখি, institutionally in red light areas, condom use is compulsory. That is one kind of lifestyle change. Second lifestyle change which has affected all of us irrespective of risky behavior, আমরা কোন রকমের ইনজেকশন কিন্তু নন ডিসপোজেবল সিরিঞ্জে, নট ইভেন ইন দ্য ভিলেজেস উই টেক। কেননা সিরিঞ্জের সূচের থ্রুতেও এটা স্প্রেড হয় দেখা গেছে। সেই সব লাইফস্টাইল চেঞ্জ কিন্তু became a permanent kind of change in our life, and it will continue as long as we are unable to destroy the virus completely. Wiped out হয়েছে আমরা বলতে পারি না HIV pandemic. Similarly, SARS 21st centuryতেই হয়েছিল এবং পাবলিক অ্যাটেনশনও ড্র করেছিল। আমাদের দেশে সেইভাবে সার্স এসছে বলা যাবে না। সার্সের সিভিয়ারিটি বেশ ভালোই ছিল, কিন্তু এটা মোস্টলি ছিল ল্যাটিন আমেরিকার মধ্যে, মেক্সিকো এবং আদার এলাকার মধ্যে, এবং ওই জায়গার মধ্যেই কনফাইন করে ফেলা হয়েছিল। কিন্তু এটা ডেথ কিন্তু বেশ হাই ছিল, অ্যারাউন্ড 10% অফ দ্য ইনফেক্টেড পপুলেশন, 20,000 থেকে 5 লাখ মতো ইনফেক্টেড হয়েছিল। 2009 আবার স্প্যানিশ ফ্লুর একটুখানি রিইমার্জেন্স আমরা দেখতে পেয়েছি H1N1 ভাইরাস দিয়ে। এটা কিন্তু আমাদের দেশে পুনাতেও এসেছিল ফ্রম হংকং, কেননা স্প্যানিশ ফ্লু আবার অরিজিন করেছিল চায়নাতে বলা যেতে পারে, এবং চায়না এবং হংকং এ, এবং পুনাতে কয়েকটি ফ্লাইট থেকে যারাই এসেছিলেন তাদের মধ্যে এই ইনফেকশনটা পাওয়া হয়েছিল। এগেইন উই ফলোড দ্যাট আইসোলেশন, কোয়ারেন্টাইন and lockdown. Lockdown means only Pune was completely locked down. পুনার থেকে বাইরে যাবে না, ভেতরে আসবে না করে সেটাকে কনফাইন করে দেওয়া হয়েছিল। এটা গেল লিটল হিস্ট্রি। আমি প্যান্ডেমিক কোভিড নিয়ে একটু ব্রিফ টাচ করব, নিশ্চয়ই সবার খিদে পেয়ে গেছে। ইবোলা আউটব্রেকটা একটু না বললেই নয়। ইবোলাটা হচ্ছে 2014 থেকে 16 সেন্ট্রাল আর ওয়েস্ট আফ্রিকায় বেশি হয়েছিল, কিন্তু এটা খুব ছোট জায়গার মধ্যে ছিল, এটাকে ঠিক প্যান্ডেমিক বলা যায় না, কিন্তু এটা খুব ডেডলি ছিল। মানে ডেথের ফ্যাটালিটি ওয়াজ ভেরি হাই। সেই জন্য এটাকেও সিমিলার ম্যানারে যেভাবে H1N1টা ইন্ডিয়াতে, ঠিক সেইভাবে ওই লোকালাইজড ভাবে নাইজেরিয়া, মালি, লিবিয়া, সিয়েরা লিওন কিছু কিছু পকেটে ছিল, এবং লোকালাইজড ভাবে কন্টেইনমেন্ট জোন, যেটা আমরা এখন বারবার শুনছি, সেই কন্টেইনমেন্ট জোন করে লোকালাইজড করে দেওয়া হয়। আরেকটা ভাইরাস, সেটাও ইউনিক ভাইরাস এসেছিল, সেটা হচ্ছে জিকা ভাইরাস। সেটা তো বেশিরভাগ লোকেরা শুনে থাকবে, বাদরের থেকে তৈরি মিউটেশনে। আর উগান্ডায় প্রথম দেখা যায়। কিছু হিউম্যানের মধ্যে 2014-তে ধরা হয়, বোঝা যায়নি যেটা মানুষের মধ্যেও ছড়িয়ে যাবে, কিন্তু বেশি ছড়িয়েছিল ব্রাজিলে। এবং লাকিলি আনলাকিলি সামহাউ সেই প্রায়ার টু দ্যাট, ঠিক সেই টাইম পিরিয়ডে মানে কোনো একটা প্রেজেন্টেশনের জন্য ব্রাজিলে গেছিলাম, এবং সেখানে কিন্তু এয়ারপোর্টে আমাদের টেস্ট হয়েছিল, ব্লাড প্রিন্ট করে টেস্ট, যে জিকা ভাইরাস আছে কিনা। পরে আমার কোভিড দেখতে দেখতে মনে হচ্ছে যে হ্যাঁ, এই মেথড গুলো তো সেই সময় ফলো করা হয়েছে। কেননা যদি টাইম পিরিয়ডটা তোমরা দেখো, সে বছর ছিল রিও ডি জেনিরোর ওয়ার্ল্ড কাপ ফুটবল, কয়েক মাসের মধ্যেই। সেই জন্য তার নিউজও সেইভাবে স্প্রেড করা হয়নি, কারণ ওয়ার্ল্ড কাপ ফুটবল হচ্ছে few thousand crores of economic liability on the entire globe. Not only Brazil will be affected, entire globe. এবং ওটা আর কয়েক মাসের মধ্যেই ছিল, 4-5-6 মাসের মধ্যেই ছিল এই সময় আউটব্রেকটা হয়েছে। তাই কাজেই if we give a very panic view of that, তো তাহলে গেমটা এফেক্টেড হতে পারে, এবং গেম এফেক্টেড হওয়ার সাথে সাথে কিন্তু অর্থনৈতিক ব্যবস্থার মধ্যেও বিশাল একটা ধস নেমে যেতে পারে। সেই জন্য অনেক সময় বলা হয় যে জিকা আউটব্রেক ইজ বেসিক্যালি আউটব্রেক অফ এগেইন ইনফোডেমিক, মানে এই প্রথম আমরা ইন্টারনেটের থ্রুতে স্কেয়ার্স তৈরি করার চেষ্টা করেছিলাম থ্রু জিকা স্প্রেড। And studying the internet behavior is not beyond the demographic behavior অথবা geographic behavior. Geographic কে যদি তুমি place and space এর science বলে ভাবো, internet is free of place and space, and if we lose that sense, we cannot actually will be address any public policy. সেই জন্য ইন্টারনেটের থ্রুতে যে জিকা ভাইরাস আমি বললাম, সেই স্কেয়ারসটা ছড়ানোর এফোর্ট একটা ছিল, কিন্তু যাই হোক এটা কার্ভ করা হয়েছিল লুকিং অ্যাট দ্য ওয়ার্ল্ড কাপ, ফুটবল ওয়ার্ল্ড কাপ অফ which was scheduled in Rio de Janeiro. এবার আসছি নভেল করোনা ভাইরাসে। আমি শুরুই করেছি যে when you are preceded by a scholar like Professor Bhagat, you really do not get much to talk about that. কিন্তু আমি একটু ওই ডেমোগ্রাফিক ফিগারই দিই। ইনফেকশন যদি দেখি, till 14th of October in world 38.3 million people are infected out of billion 6+. So infection rate is really low. Total infected in India is 7.24 million, again out of 1.35 billion. Infection rate is really low. Global figure, কেননা again that infodemic, যখন বলা হচ্ছে যে ইন্ডিয়া 10-এর মধ্যে চলে এসছে, ইন্ডিয়া 9-এ চলে এসছে, সেই সময় থেকেই আমরা যারা ডেমোগ্রাফি নিয়ে স্টাডি করি আমরা বলেছি ইন্ডিয়া ফার্স্ট হবে। ইন্ডিয়া ফার্স্ট হবে কেননা ইন্ডিয়া যে ফার্স্ট হতে পারতো ইন্ডিয়াকে সুপারসিড করে, চায়নার প্রথমত ডেটা is very much curtailed. We do not get the data, and moreover their infection rate, if we have to believe them, was very low. তাহলে চায়নাকে যদি আমরা ছেড়ে দিই, সেই হিসাবে ইন্ডিয়া কোনো না কোনো দিন ফার্স্ট হবে, কারণ ইন্ডিয়া লিটারেসিতেও সংখ্যায় ফার্স্ট, ইলিটারেসিতেও সংখ্যায় ফার্স্ট। সংখ্যা দিয়ে যদি ইন্ডিয়াকে বিচার করা হয় তাহলে ইন্ডিয়া সবকিছুতে ফার্স্টেই আসবে। কিন্তু রেট অফ ইনফেকশন অনুযায়ী ইন্ডিয়াতে আউট অফ 1.3537 বিলিয়ন মাত্র 7.24 মিলিয়ন সোফার। আমি কালকেই ডেটাটা আপডেট করেছি, 14th October অবধি ডেটা আছে। গ্লোবাল ফিগারে দেখা যাচ্ছে যে কেসেস পার মিলিয়ন ইন ইন্ডিয়া লিটল হায়ার। কেননা গ্লোবাল ফিগারে এই জন্য দেখা যাচ্ছে যে অনেক দেশেই কোভিড-19 সেইভাবে এন্ট্রি করেনি বা স্প্রেড করেনি বা বিকজ অফ দেয়ার ল্যাক অফ স্ক্রিনিং নাম্বার সেভাবে আসেনি, হোয়াট এভার মে বি দ্য রিজন। কাজেই গ্লোবালি ইন্ডিয়া ইজ স্টপিং, রিয়েলি টুয়ার্ডস টপ। কিন্তু যখন আমরা ইনফেক্টেড জায়গাগুলো দেশগুলোকে দেখছি, যারা হিউজ ইনফেকশন, হু আর অল সাফারিং লার্জ নাম্বার অফ ইনফেকশন, সেই ক্ষেত্রে কিন্তু ইন্ডিয়ার ফিগার ইজ রিয়েলি লো, কেসেস পার মিলিয়ন। সিমিলারলি ডেথের ক্ষেত্রেও ইন্ডিয়ার পার মিলিয়ন ডেথস আর অলসো লো। কিন্তু এই সমস্ত সত্ত্বেও যে একটা জিনিস ইম্পর্টেন্ট টু নোটিস, যদি আমি আর 5 মিনিট আর নিতে পারি তো?
শিওর ম্যাম, শিওর ম্যাম।
যদি আমি সামারাইজ করি, হিস্টোরিক্যালি আমি যদি দেখি যে অনেকগুলো যতগুলো রোগের কথা আমি বললাম তার মধ্যে বেশ কিছু ছিল ব্যাকটেরিয়া সেন্ট্রিক। আমরা ব্যাকটেরিয়া কন্ট্রোল করার জন্য অ্যান্টিবায়োটিক আবিষ্কার করে ফেলেছি, কাজে ব্যাকটেরিয়াল ডিজিজকে যে কোনো ভাবে কন্ট্রোল করা যায়। আচ্ছা, আদার দ্যান দ্যাট, ইফ ইট ইজ প্যাথোজেন বেসড লাইক প্লেগ হচ্ছে ফ্লিজ, রডেন্ট, এইভাবে আসছে। এটা ভাইরাল বাট প্যাথোজেন বেসড থ্রুতে আসছে। কাজে প্লেগকেও আমরা কন্ট্রোল করতে পারি থ্রু গভর্নমেন্ট পলিসি, পাবলিক পলিসি। কিন্তু যখন এটা অসুখ লাইক ভাইরাল ডিজিজ, প্রথমত ভাইরাস কন্টিনিউয়াস নিজেকে মিউটেট করে, সেই জন্য এর একটা যে কোনো ধরনের টিকা, যেটা আমরা ভ্যাকসিনেশন বলছি, ইট টেকস huge number of time because it does not establish its character very soon. So COVID-19 is like that, which is continuously mutating. We are still updating ourselves with the responses. সেই জন্য আমি এর উপরে বেশি হাইলাইট করতে চাই না। কি হবে ফিউচার এখনো আমরা জানি না, বাট স্টিল সাম অফ দ্য গাইডলাইন্স হুইচ আর ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট, যে এরকম আমি বললাম যে HIV AIDS এবং COVID-19, এক্ষেত্রে কিন্তু গভর্নমেন্টের চেয়েও ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল ইজ মাচ মোর রেসপন্সিবল। কিছু পলিসি তৈরি করতে পারে, কন্টেনমেন্ট জোন। গভর্নমেন্ট যেরকম HIV AIDS এর ক্ষেত্রে তৈরি করেছে যে all the hospitals and every health system should follow disposable syringe. It is part of the policy now. সেটা গভর্নমেন্ট করতে পারে। কিন্তু কন্ডম ইউজ ইজ ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল, মাস্ক ইউজ ইজ ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল। সেই কোভিড এর যেটা ক্যারেক্টারিস্টিক্স আমরা দেখছি এবং যেটা আমরা থ্রেট ফিল করছি in the name of whatever you can say, democracy, human right, across the globe. I will not only say it is India, America, UK is also in that line. এবং যে ক্ষেত্রে মাস্কের ইউজ ইচ্ছাকৃতভাবেও অনেক সময়, just because it is the government prescription, whatever may be the ruling government's prescription, some people have to defy that. With that attitude, the mask is not being used. কিন্তু এই ভাইরাসগুলো এই ধরনের যে এক্ষেত্রে যেরকম হ্যান্ড ওয়াশ, গভর্নমেন্ট ক্যান নট ইনিশিয়েট এনি পলিসি ফর দ্য ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল টু হ্যান্ড ওয়াশ। গভর্নমেন্ট কিছু অফিসে স্যানিটাইজার রেখে দিতে পারে, সোপ রাখতে পারে, ওয়াটার সাপ্লাই অ্যাসিওর করতে পারে, কিন্তু হ্যান্ড ওয়াশ ইজ ইন্ডিভিজুয়ালস থিং। ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল হ্যাজ টু go through that process. So in case of COVID-19, these are some very important things which one must take into account, and which we are still lacking the public hygiene, and our density of population is high. And of course, as Professor Bhagat has said, that slums are really lacking the infrastructure even to maintain the hand wash practice, healthy hand wash practice, or even the quarantine of the things. যেরকম আমরা শহরে যারা বেশি জায়গা নিয়ে থাকি, শাকসবজি প্রচুর জল দিয়ে ধুচ্ছি, সাবান দিয়ে ধুচ্ছি, 3-4 দিন প্যাকেট এনে বাইরে ফেলে রাখছি before we are touching. These are not possible for a household or for any institution, for any household where 10 by 10 room is occupied by 6, 7, 8 persons together. তো সেক্ষেত্রে একটা কমেন্ট আমাদের দিল্লির সিএম কেজরিওয়াল বলেছিলেন যে এখন যে সমস্ত ইনফেকশন গুলো আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি এগুলো এসেনশিয়ালি ফ্রম ওয়ান হাউসহোল্ড, একটা হাউসহোল্ডের থেকেই 7 জন ইনফেক্টেড আসছে, একটা হাউসহোল্ড থেকেই 8 জন ইনফেক্টেড আসছে, দ্যাট এবং দে আর migrants who have returned back. So we need not to worry, but we need to worry. It is not only false satisfaction. We need to worry. In the line of Professor Bhagat, I also agree that policies to address this decongestion of the cities, যেটা উনি অনেকখানি বলেন, এখানে আমি জানি না আমি মিস করেছি কিনা, যে একটা ফিউচার কোভিড-19 এর দেখা যাচ্ছে, যেটা আমাদের প্রধানমন্ত্রী বলেছিলেন যে pre-COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 লকডাউনের প্রথম লেকচারটা আমি খালি শুনেছিলাম, বলেছিলেন pre-COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 life will not be the same. তো সেটা আমরা হাসপাতালের ক্ষেত্রে HIV AIDS এর ক্ষেত্রেও দেখেছি যে আমাদের সিরিঞ্জ যদি হাসপাতালে না থাকে আমাদের কিনে আনতে হয়, কিন্তু recurrent usable syringe are available enough. So our life has changed along that line. এবং same kind of thing, what as a policy maker, some responsibility Professor Bhagat has laid upon us. So many of us are writing several papers highlighting the prospects and probabilities. So আমার যেটা প্রভূত মনে হয় যে this is a good chance for revival of the class 2, class 3, class 4 cities. তাদের ইনফ্রাস্ট্রাকচারটা রিলেটিভলি ডেভেলপড, রুরাল তো আছেই, রুরালকে আমাদের দেখতে হবে, কিন্তু আমরা আরবানকে ছেড়ে দিয়ে রুরালকে দেখতে পারবো না। ইমিডিয়েট ডিকনজেশনের জন্য অফ দ্য মেট্রো সিটিজ আমরা যদি ক্লাস 2, ক্লাস 3 তে রিলোকেশন কিছু অ্যাক্টিভিটিস এর করতে পারি, এবং ইট ইজ কোয়াইট পসিবল এট দিস টাইম বিকজ there are several activities which have been identified can be maintained from this work from home concept, work from especially the ITs. There was no need of the ITs to come and congest the city of NCR. They can go to Gorakhpur, establish the demand for the infrastructure. অথচ আইটি হাবও নয়দাতে আর গুরগাঁওয়েই তৈরি হয়েছে, এবং তারা রেগুলারলি দিল্লির যে মেট্রো তা ইউজ করে তাদের অফিসে পৌঁছতে। মেট্রো খালি হয়ে গেছে, ক্যাব সার্ভিস থেমে গেছে, বিকজ অফ দিস আইটি হাবস আর ওয়ার্কিং ফ্রম হোম। If they are working from home, then why can't we provide those kind of infrastructure in the class 2, class 3 cities in and around, so that the decongestion measure can continue? And instead of claiming that Delhi attracts, we take pride of that, যে ধারাবি এশিয়ার বৃহত্তম স্লাম, সেই স্বাধীনতার দিন থেকে আমরা এটাকে প্রাইড হিসাবে ইউজ করছি। Why didn't we try to decongest those slums, relocating or other policies? Why we have not taken those kind of slums? Why even the film city have to come in the Noida only? Why can't film city can go into Mira? Why can't? These are some of the questions in front of us when we are looking at the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you. I hope I stick to the topic. Thank you all for once again for giving me this opportunity. এবং আমার মনে হয় আন্ডারগ্রাজুয়েটের জিওগ্রাফির বাচ্চারা কিছু হাইলাইট পেয়েছে ওদের বোঝার মতন, বলে আমি শেষ করছি। ধন্যবাদ। হ্যাঁ, yes.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now there are some queries we have received from the participants, and can I request you to address those queries, ma'am?
Yes, sure.
Okay. One is how can we adopt with such type of upcoming pandemic situation further from historical perspective?
ইংরেজিতে বলবো না বাংলায়?
As you wish, ma'am.
Acha. Okay. So history has given us enough opportunity to learn, and many of the virologists or the scientists or the epidemiologists, those who are working on these virus medicines, they are specifically saying that we have not taken enough lessons from the virus spread, and we have not continued with our research of COVID. কোভিড রিসার্চ কিন্তু 2009 এর পরে ব্রেক চলে এসেছে, H1N1 আর রিভাইভ করেনি, এবং আমরা এন্টার গ্লোব খুব যেটাকে বলে যে ড্যান্সিং উইথ দ্য কন্টেম্পোরারি মিউজিক, যেটা নতুন মিউজিক আসে সেটার সাথেই সবাই গুনগুন শুরু করি। তো হিস্টোরিক্যাল লেসন্স আর ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট। আমরা যদি ভাইরাসের ট্র্যাকটা ফলো করতাম, আমাদের ল্যাব ইকুইপড হয়ে অলরেডি কিছু হাউ ইট কুড অ্যাডভান্স সেই ধরনের স্টাডি কন্টিনিউ করতো, তাহলে হয়তো ভ্যাকসিন যে ইনোভেশন would have been much easier, would have taken much lesser time, because all of you know that vaccine takes to develop at least smallpox was the last vaccine which we have developed, and that vaccine took 6 to 7 years to develop, inoculation of smallpox. So I see this vaccine thing is a political gimmick, whether it is Trump or whether it is Russia or whether it is AstraZeneca. It will take some time. Even the innovation comes, the virus is still changing its character, so it will not establish itself. But historical lessons that research should continue on this viral front to control this.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. And another one is the lockdown situation due to COVID-19 global pandemic creates global demographic change such as baby boom?
Interesting question. Some articles are coming out, আর আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি সব বলিউড সেলিব্রিটিজ হ্যাভ গন adopted for pregnancy because they are free from shooting. But whether it will lead to baby boom, if we do not get that data, it's very difficult. But there is a baby boom is a global baby boom. You need really a large number of birth. But there could be some unmet need related birth among the poor, because that supply chain, those who depend on government supply chain from the government supply, has drastically been disrupted during the lockdown period. Jokhon amra only we were serving the COVID patient, people who are not in dire need of hospital services, they did not visit the hospitals during those times. There is a possibility, but global population base is so high, to term it as a baby boom will be little difficult to say.
Okay, ma'am. And another question, that is, animals are vectors of disease spread ultimately arising pandemic. Is this true?
In some cases, genetic diseases are creating these havocs. Definitely, genetic diseases are creating this havoc. But animal maintenance of healthy animal in the hygienic situation, Wuhaner condition ta tumra সবাই জানো, যেটা যে মার্কেটটার কথা বলা হয়েছে, সেখানে মিক্সিং অফ দ্য অ্যানিমাল ইজ ভেরি ফ্রি, এবং এই ফ্রি মিক্সিং এর জন্য যেটা অনেক সময় দেখা গেছে যে দে দেমসেলভস এক্সচেঞ্জ দ্য ভাইরাস অ্যামং দেমসেলভস, এন্ড সেটা অলরেডি মিউটেটেড এন্ড স্ট্রং লেভেল অফ ভাইরাস develops in those kind of things. So if it is maintained in hygienic condition, then it is different. But HIV/AIDS was not animal was the disease. Animal was responsible. It is human with animal interaction, that too sexual interaction. It was brutal development of virus. It was human or not God, they are equally brutal. They are also animal. They are also in the animal kingdom. So all are responsible.
Okay, ma'am. And there is last one, that is second wave of COVID-19 spread in many countries have again started. Why?
Second wave, if we analyze the data, that it has come with the reopening of the economy, and as it was rightly pointed out by Professor Bhagat, that reopening definitely will again increase the mobility and migration, because we prior to COVID, we reached to the height of mobility and migration, and there was sudden truncation. We could not change our entire economic base so suddenly. So again, that mobility and migration has increased, and definitely with that mobility and migration, that spread will continue. Like historically, you have seen that it has spread through trade route, it has spread through caravan, it has spread through military, army personnel. So with the movement and mobility, it will increase. But I always see that COVID-19, if you analyze it, is not only I. If you try to analyze it, it is one of the heaviest virus which cannot move by itself, which cannot move through air. It falls within 1 meter, which is 2 gaj ki duri. So within 1 meter. So if we can maintain those 2 gaj ki duri or 1 meter distance, if we can maintain the mask in the crowd along with mobility, we should not have seen this peak. I hope you have, I think you have noticed the notice যে লন্ডনে যেই মুহূর্তে ইউনিভার্সিটি খোলা হয়েছে, স্টুডেন্ট হ্যাভ ওয়েন্ট ব্যাক অ্যান্ড দে গেভ দ্য পার্টি, কেননা social distancing is not the human nature, and from that party itself 6 was infected. So those are some irresponsible behavior. When we have asked to maintain social distancing, we should maintain, because the peak is, we say peak has gone. Peak has gone does not mean it has touched zero. It is very much prevailing in the society. So peak will again come. That's why the peak has come, because of our irresponsible behavior. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to request our respected convener, Professor Renuka Gupta, ma'am, to conduct the session.
Thank you, Tushar.
Okay, okay.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself. Ma'am, please unmute.
Okay. Now I welcome Professor Nandudulal Shonigrahi, our coordinator, Internal Quality Assurance Cell, to express our gratitude. Professor Nandudulal Shonigrahi, please.
Hello. Hello, Babu. Am I audible? Hello.
Hello.
Yes, you are audible, sir. Yes, you are audible, sir.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of Nistarini College, Purulia, West Bengal, Internal Quality Assurance Cell, and from myself, I extend my heartfelt thanks and gratitude to all of you for being with us in this virtual platform. All of you know that we are now in an unfortunate reality of COVID-19, and we are very much thankful to the esteemed speakers who had with us for the last 2 hours to convey the message of COVID-19 and its pros and cons, along with the history for our blooming citizens. In this webinar platform, we have with 2 distinguished persons as speakers. First one, Professor R.K. Bhagat, Professor and Head, Department of Migration and Urban Studies, International Institute of Population Sciences, IIPS, Mumbai. and Professor Bhaswati Das, Associate Professor, Center for the Study of Regional Development, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. It's a great pleasure, privilege, and honor to all of us to have such a distinguished professor in our virtual domain. Needless to say, this is the first time we have got such a brilliant speakers to address in this occasion. Professor R.K. Bhagat has rightly inculcated the fate and the tyranny of the migrant workers during the COVID-19, and his presentations might illuminate all the students regarding the unfortunate reality of COVID-19, along with the migrant workers who have been suffered the most in this traumatic situation. So on behalf of our college, we convey our sincere thanks and gratitude to Professor R.K. Bhagat, and I also invite Professor Bhagat to be with us when the situation will be overcome, because all of us, we know that we shall overcome someday. We have with us Professor Bhaswati Das, another eminent speaker, and she belongs to the Center of the Learning of Indian Education, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. And it's a great pleasure and honor to have Professor Das with us, because Jawaharlal Nehru University is such a university which makes a different way of thinking, particularly in the domain of knowledge and exploration. We again convey our sincere thanks to Professor Bhaswati Das, and we again welcome Madam. When the situation will become normal, please come and have your pleasant journey with us, because our college is quite good enough to extend our hospitality for those persons who really love us and who really have with us. So I welcome again you, Madam. Please come and have the party floor of our Nistarini College campus. We have with us Dr. Subal Chandra De, President Governing Body. He is none other than our popularly called Subalda, and he is always with us, and he is the mentor. He guided us, and whenever we have any kind of problem, he always addressed us. And being a president of the governing body, we try his level best to make the college the best college, not only in Purulia district, but also in this particular Jungle Mahal domain. On behalf of the organizing committee, I convey my regards and sincere gratitude to Dr. Subal Chandra De, President Governing Body Nistarini College and Controller of Examination, Sidhu Kandu Birsa University, Purulia. We have with us, as usual, Dr. Indrani Dev, Principal Nistarini College, Purulia. She is always with us. She is our mentor, she is our guardian. So whenever we raise any kind of issue, especially in academic endeavor, she always have our company. And Madam, thank you very much for again giving us permission to have such a virtual, beautiful platform. We have with us the head of the department, Professor Renuka Gupta. I popularly called Renuka Di. She is very much tensed last few days regarding this domain, particularly the virtual platform does not need any kind of interaction directly. And what is the problem that web connectivity has been lost? So she was very much anxious, and I feel her anxiety. So I think right now, Professor Gupta has become very much pleased having such a successful seminar, particularly webinar in this virtual platform. Thank you, Renika Di, on behalf of IQC for organizing this, in spite of taking a lot of burden along with your tension. I think you are now tension free. We have with us another senior professor, Professor Monalisa Barikwarida. She always one of the important faculty member, and we are going to introduce postgraduate studies due to COVID-19. We have not been able to do so. She has also joined by her fruitful company to the entire department, along with the entire company. We have with us two, newcomer professor, Professor Vikas Datta and Professor Tushar Kanti Hembram. I welcome you all because this is the first time you are joining this kind of webinar along with the seminar, whatever we say. So I think as far as the prestige of the department, along with the brilliance of this particular department of our college, sure you will have your company in our next journey. Last but not least, we had with 500 participants from West Bengal and different parts of our state. We convey our sincere thanks and gratitude to all the participants who had their valuable time to spend with us in this, along with their pleasure in this virtual domain. I also convey my sincere thanks and gratitude to all my esteemed teachers, professors, teaching and non-teaching staff of our college who had in the virtual domain to make this program a grand success. My sincere good wishes to all the student participants who are with us, particularly the student of the Nistarini College. And last but not least, I must have to convey sincere thanks to Mr. Debabrata Mondal, our system developer and ITC assistants, unless which this grand success will become a dream to us. So thank you, Mr. Debabrata Mondal, for your kind cooperation and assistance to make this seminar a good one. Last but not least, I would like to quote a line from the beautiful poem, Monnantore Morini Amra, Mari Niye Kori, So Mari Niye Ghor Kori. We stay with this kind of pandemic and epidemic. And as far as the COVID-19 is concerned, I have to say that this is an unfortunate reality. And the problem is that in 1859, Charles Darwin proposed a theory that is called the theory of natural selection, along with the variation. So we have to develop some variations to face the COVID-19. And COVID-19 is the last one. There are a lot of COVID-19 which are supposed to be arrived as because we are going to change our environment for our ice-keeping need. As Mahatma Gandhi told, that Earth has enough need to address the human need, but not to fulfill the every man's need. And we become the victims of our greed. So let us abolish our greed, and we should respond to our need. In this particular context, I have to say that we have to maintain the stay safe condition. We have to maintain the physical distance, as Madam told. Along with, I have to say, unfortunately, the vaccine is nothing but a mirage, because any kind of vaccine development, it needs a lot of time. And being a student of biology, I can say that RNA vaccine is so difficult to explore, and its introduction and its application is so rare that we are forced to say this is nothing but a mirage. It are Morishika chhara kichu noy, but we think that scientists will shortly explore any other dependable vaccines that can extend a ray of hope to overcome this global pandemic situation, which is nothing but an unfortunate reality of today. So thank you all. Thank you very much all. I think this is a formal vote of thanks to all of you, but you are always in our close to heart. So whenever we have such an opportunity, sure, you will join this virtual event and respond to us to make such a webinar grand success. We are waiting for you in our next endeavor. So thank you very much. Thank you everybody once again. And ultimately we have to say that miles to go before we stay. Until that, please stay safe, be healthy. এবং পশ্চিম বাংলার বিশেষ করে আমাদের এই পুরুলিয়ার জঙ্গলমহল থেকে আপনাদের সবাইকে জানাই শারদ শুভেচ্ছা। আগামী শারদীয় শুভবর্ষ, শুভ দুর্গোৎসব আপনাদের শুভ হোক, ভালো হোক। এবং আমরা আবার আমাদের অরিজিনাল যে ডোমেন, ন্যাচারাল যে বোর্ড, আমাদের ক্যাম্পাসে ফিরে আসি, এই প্রত্যয় আমরা মা দুর্গার কাছে আমাদের এই অঙ্গীকার রাখি, তার কাছে আমরা প্রার্থনা করি। তিনি তো সর্বশক্তিমান, তিনি আমাদের সেই শক্তি দিন যাতে আমরা আবার সুব্যবস্থিত ফিরে এসি। Thank you everybody. Thank you all for staying with us. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you everybody. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Sir, thank you. And
thank you.
Ashwati, thanks a lot. Next time, physically, we will do
yes.
one seminar in our college. We welcome you always.